What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale, a little delirious Dan Favale, coming at you with getting changing wardrobes at least, 4 to 6 times per day at this point. The certified fantabulous Mr. Grant Hughes. Rumor has it NBA free agency is happening, so we're going to be here to talk about it. Mostly everything that happened in day one. We will react to anything breaking, hopefully, if it happens. But other than that, Grant, before we kind of cannonball in and we're going to hit most teams, maybe every team we talked about, we'll do a quick rundown at the end of like kind of smaller type stuff for you the sickoest of sickos.
Truest sickos.
Right. But first, Grant, how the heck are you doing?
I feel fresh as a daisy because I'm in my third shirt of the day. It has been a sweaty day, partly because of free agency, partly because of being outside and it's 100 degrees here. So I feel fantastic. I can't believe we're here again, but I think it's time. I think it's time to discuss NBA free agency day number one.
Without further ado, let's just dive right into this. We're going to begin with the single biggest move that I think has happened so far for sure. I mean, like monetarily, like teams keeping key players, sure. But the Denver Nuggets, and we're going to tackle this each side. So like the Brooklyn Nets will be next, but from the Denver Nuggets side, they traded Michael Porter Jr. and a 2032 first-round pick for Cam Johnson. That pick is unprotected. Of note, this was definitely financially motivated. MPJ has 2 years and $79.1 million left on his deal. Cam is at 2 years and $43 million. And then the Denver Nuggets also got Bruce Brown in a one-year vets minimum. I know Bruce Brown isn't championship Denver Nuggets Bruce Brown, but that's like a nice depth piece to add. Grant, I'm really interested before I give my thoughts, which I've already written about, but I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this trade.
So I think I like it just up front. I think it's interesting to note that in this case, it seems like an unprotected first-round pick is basically, you could frame it as basically the cost of $17 million-ish in savings over each of the next 2 years, which is the rough difference between Cam Johnson and MPJ's salaries. Cam Johnson is older than MPJ. You could, however, make the case, too, that he's a better player. I think Porter Jr. has more of a reputation as just a can't-leave-him gunner, but the percentages are close enough, at least last year, and Cam Johnson actually, per 36, has gotten up more threes than MPJ has in each of the last 2 seasons. So if it's a specialist you're after, I think they're comparable. I do think Cam Johnson probably, it's hard to say this now in the wake of MPJ really gutting it through that shoulder injury and you know, defending as well as he could and getting in there to rebound. I think you could argue that Cam Johnson might be a little more well-rounded, can do a little bit more with the ball, defensively might be a little better, all things being equal. I think as we're getting here from Colton in the chat, the durability issue, which you normally associate the problem with MPJ, Johnson has actually played way less than MPJ in recent seasons.
I have a stat for that.
Yeah,
he's never played the equivalent of 70 games in a season.
So that's an issue. The cost is just it enables Denver to maybe do more, and so it's not just Johnson for MPJ. Obviously, the pick is in there, so I like it for Denver, and I also I very much like Bruce Brown. I agree he's probably not championship Bruce Brown, but you know when he was last championship Bruce Brown? When he was with Denver. So let's just assume that we're going to get the best version of Bruce Brown. Not a lot of guys that look great with Jokic and then leave have circled back to prove whether or not it is just Jokic. Like Gary Harris needs to come back to test that theory. But I like it. I'm curious what you put a fair amount of thought into this because you wrote on it. Where are you on the swap?
I like that you think I put thought into the things that I write, but
more than I just did.
I understand it, and I think that it could work out, but there's like a real risk here because you're not getting deeper as a result of this trade. It's just Cam Johnson for Michael, but you're saving money. And so I want to see what that money turns into. Is it tax savings for Josh Kroenke, or are you going to go and spend it because now you have access to most of the non-taxpayer MLE? And like if you figure out a way to dump like Zeke Naji or Dario Saric, like you can get all the way. And we don't need to we've criticized the Nuggets for not being aggressive enough to improve around Nikola Jokic. So I can't sit here and get bent out of shape that you gave up that, Jokic, that's age 36 season for Jokic with that draft pick that's going out. At the same time, to send that out and it's really just a one-for-one swap, you're not getting any deeper. And I think it's You said it's justifiable to say that it's an upgrade. I would agree that it's probably an upgrade. I mean, Cam Johnson just shot 58% on twos, 39% on threes, while in whatever Brooklyn Nets were running out for the latter half of the year. And I know he missed some time. Is it a big enough upgrade, though, to justify the opportunity cost of what could that pick have gotten you, down the line, or as you attached it to other salary? To me, this skews just a little too far towards they really wanted to get off Michael Porter Jr.'s money. With that being said, that's a very reflexive, this very moment take. If they go out and spend money to get someone else in here that's going to be a top 7 rotation member, that changes the calculus, because then it's Michael Porter Jr. in 2032 for Cam Johnson and player X. And so this feels like I don't think it's a bad deal for the Nuggets. I want to make clear, Cam Johnson's going to be a fantastic fit next to Jokic. But older, hasn't played as much. Who knows? If he was on a different team last year, maybe he winds up playing in more games. But there is an opportunity cost and a risk profile here.
I would say I agree with sort of the foundational issue here is the savings can't just be savings. Something has to be done with the money Denver is saving in this deal. Because I like I said, you can make the case that this is lateral or maybe an improvement. But it has to lead to additional depth and another meaningful player or two coming in for it to be a home run. So it's not quite a TBD, because I think you could defend it on its own, especially if you think, well, Bruce Brown, I don't know, is now they've got 2 rotation players and they just gave up 1, so they've increased their depth that way. But the Brown signing is so small comparatively that it's not like they saved all this money in the trade so they could go get Bruce Brown. It has to be somebody else or a couple of somebodies, I think, to really put this over the top for Denver. If it is, as you said, just savings for ownership, then I hate this trade. You can't give up distant firsts unprotected to save the owner money.
It does seem now like Josh Kroenke was inarguably talking about Michael Porter Jr. in his press conference, where he was mentioning we're one catastrophic injury away from having to trade Nikola Jokic, and I just feel like that Michael Porter Jr., the off-court comments, he's been did someone take the podcast microphone out of his hands? Please, I beg somebody, anybody. But as a basketball player, seeing him gut out the shoulder injury during these playoffs, that was just that rubbed me a little bit of the wrong way. But I think it's largely fine for Denver. But I'm curious to see what happens next. Are you ready to go over to the Brooklyn side of things?
Yeah.
Do you want to take us through any additional details here that don't have to do with the trade package?
Well, as you said, the pick's unprotected. There's the $17 million there coming basically both years. They still have the Nets. This may be the most interesting aspect of this. They still have the most cap space, but it is significantly reduced. Between 17 and 25 million left under the cap. Part of that also is because they re-signed Day'Ron Sharpe for 2 years and 12. They re-signed Zaire Williams for 2 years. The 26-27 season there is a team option. That's also a $12-ish million deal, I think, if I recall correctly. So look, this is what we kind of wanted them to do with their cap space anyway, is to take on money with a pick attached, or be a facilitator in a 3-team deal. So this is kind of what we were asking for. It is it kind of limits them a little bit, right? You can't. They were never going to sign a max guy, but now that chunk they had to kind of use as a facilitator is significantly reduced. Not they're still the main player. You're still coming to Brooklyn if you're trying to swing a deal and you can't make the money work. But this is a kind of a limiting move in some ways.
It is, but the upside on that pick is insane. And Michael Porter Jr. That's not Michael Porter Jr. is also someone that couldn't you flip for value, if not this season, then next summer as an expiring contract?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where, right, so just to say next summer, when theoretically there's just more flexibility around the league, what he's viewed as, value-wise. Considering you had to give up an unprotected pick to move him just now, it's going to be quite a turnabout if you're getting draft capital for him. But that's not out of the realm of possibility, especially if he puts together another 75, 77 and 81 games the last couple of years. If he just continues to be durable and shoots it like he has, then I think, he's never going to be, that's a hugely positive value, but you might be able to get something for him.
Alan Davis in the chat says, to circle back to the Nuggets are reportedly in the mix for Horford or Yabusele. I wouldn't be surprised if there was more. I mean, in minimum, sure, but I think Yabusele or Horford would cost you most of the flexibility. I would love. I mean, find me a team I wouldn't love Al Horford on.
Yeah,
but
I very much disagree with this because Al Horford has to go to the Warriors or I'm going to be upset. So
Well, what do you
I
think
don't
about
like him anywhere else.
What do you think about the idea of using, like, if you're presumably, I mean, maybe he signs for something ridiculously low, but like of using like your best spending tool left on a big when Jokic is your best player? Like how important are those? Al Horford at least, and I guess Yabusele too. At least those are bigs that in theory you could play with Jokic a little bit. Not, I wouldn't want that to be a core line. I mean, maybe Horford. I mean, I'm just Horford pilled. Anybody knows this at this point.
Yeah, same. I think like, well, there's kind of two ways to come at it, and they're sort of butting up against each other. One is like, well, it's stupid to spend resources on someone who in the games that matter, like Jokic is going to play 43 minutes or whatever it is, or more if he has to. So, and the games that matter are the ones the Nuggets are trying to win and should care about. So, like allocation of resource wise, like I don't know if I love it. But then there's the fact that like Denver has worn down in multiple seasons now, and Aaron Gordon can't just be asked to play backup center all the time. So you do need a body there. It's tough. I like, so that's all to say, I would understand it if the Nuggets went that route and spent resources on a backup big. It's just, you'd hate to see Al Horford play 7 minutes in a postseason game because you're just playing Jokic and Gordon until they fall apart.
I find that I'm liking this deal more for the Nets than I think consensus, and like it a little bit less than for the Nuggets. Like I maybe I over romanticize the upside on those picks that far out, but an unprotected pick 7 drafts away, and I am kind of interested. Over the past 3 seasons, Michael Porter Jr. has shot sub 32% on threes with Nikola Jokic off the floor, but I am still kind of seeing like I still want to see what he's like in a more featured role, which presumably he'll have, because the best passer on the Nets right now, Grant, as we're recording this, is Yegor Demin, I would argue.
Right.
So, like, Michael Porter Jr. is going to have to do some more on-ball work, and I'm just kind of curious to see, like, in Denver, we saw it, like, to some extent, it didn't always end well, some of the jumpers he would take, but this is different. Jordi Fernandez, head coach. I'm still curious to see it, but I like the upside of that pick, and it does sort of seem like, you know, the way that the Colin Sexton, and we'll get to that, like going to Charlotte, and then the Jazz just buying out Jordan Clarkson, is the salary dumping market not necessarily as lucrative as you would expect when there are only how many teams are looking to either slash money to get out, like what Boston was doing, and they had players where they could get compensation for them basically, or the Suns. Like you don't have a lot of teams in those like desperate situations, and Denver isn't desperate. I'm still curious to see whether this was a money-saving move or just to open up the MLE, but I think to get a 2032 unprotected pick on a team whose timeline is very much like the next 2 to 3 years, and when Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon are like getting up there and they have a lot of miles on their treads.
Oh, yeah.
I like this deal for Brooklyn.
I like it fine, too. I mean, the upside's undeniable. It's just, it's so far out, and just who knows.
And now, by the way, the Kevin Durant trade tree, as disappointed, not Mad Suns fan, the comments said, still waiting for the crazy. Love me some Cam Johnson, and KD got traded. So you look at the KD trade tree now. What have they turned him into? Like a dozen first-round picks? When you just look, that's insane.
I think they're ahead on the picks. That seems fair. Yeah, no, that, like, again, I'd be curious to know how many other offers were out there that could have gotten the Nets an unprotected pick. This may have been the best possible thing they could have done. We'll have to see.
We move on to, I don't even know the order at this point. The Rockets, just like flexing embarrassment of riches muscles, quite frankly. They get Dorian Finney-Smith, 4 years, $53 million. That's most of the non-taxpayer MLE. The Rockets are just so in their bag that they signed Clint Capella for 3 years and $21.5 million without legally being able to do so. That's going to be a sign and trade with the Hawks. We have no details yet as we're recording this on what those details are going to be. They got the Jabari Smith Jr. extension, 5 years and $122 million. That'll kick in 26-27. That's an incredible deal. Like, I know he hasn't done much there because they're so deep, but I think Jabari Smith could be an all-star one day. And so to get him on like that far below the max, granted he was never going to get the max, absurd. And then they brought back Jeff Green, Jayshawn Tate, and Aaron Holiday for 1 year veteran minimums. And of course we know they already traded Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and the number 10 pick, which turned into Malawach, for what's his name? I can't remember who'd they get, Grant?
Some Kevin guy. Kevin Willis, I think.
Yeah, I think Kevin Willis. What are you thinking about what the Rockets are doing right now?
So the Capella one was I did a double take on the Capella one because I was just like, well, they got Steven Adams back. He extended, and you've still got obviously Alperen Şengün is like somehow forgotten. So what's the theory of Capella? Like what I guess you're banking on Adams missing time. You want another conventional big. Like I was surprised by the Capella move. The money's fine. I mean, you're $7 million a year. I like that's a pretty solid value for a guy who, may or may not be like a legit starting caliber center anymore, but he's an insurance guy. I just never in my like, thinking about what the Rockets needed ever landed on Capella. Did you bump on that too? Or is it just like, sure, they need another big?
Yeah, I kind of felt they needed, because how were you supposed to play 5 centers at once if you have fewer than 5 centers on the roster?
Yeah, they had success with double big. Yeah, the double big worked, so maybe 3. No, I don't know. It's fine. The money's not going to kill you. But I would imagine too, there's going to be maybe a team option. The Rockets like those, or partial guarantee or something once the rest of the details here come out.
Because sign and trades only need to have 1 guaranteed year on it.
Could be a Jock Landale situation,
right?
Where it's like everything's non-guaranteed. So
that was a little bit surprising. But yeah, like why don't you just play Clint Capella, Jabari Smith Jr., Steven Adams, Alperen Şengün all at once at this point? Then who's your other big? We'll call it Amen Thompson or Tari Eason, and just
Kevin Durant. Everybody's 6'10" or taller. Interesting.
Can I give you my theory on the Dorian? And I already gave you this when we were doing the Bleacher Report show. I will find a way to bring.
I'll pretend I haven't heard it.
I find a way to bring every single Rockets transaction back to Reed Shepherd, and so that's what I'm going to do here. Okay. Dorian Finney-Smith does feel like an embarrassment of riches type signing to me. Yes, you lost Dylan Brooks, but you have Amen Thompson, you have Tari Eason, you have Cam Whitmore that like he can do things. Not as good as a defender. I want to make that clear, but like. This just makes me believe, because they could still use another ball handler or passer. I think they should unleash Reed Shepherd. And right now, like that's their only option, right? Mm-hmm. Is because Kevin Durant is just, he can still do so many things, but like running your entire offense is not what he should be doing. And so I take this as a sign that the Reed Shepherd experience is going to be progressively higher volume next season. And you know what, Grant? The Rockets get an A+++ for that from me.
I was going to ask you, are you here for it at all? Because I kind of think you might be.
I might move to Houston for it. I'm there for it. I'm not just here
You're
for
about
it.
to be there. I love it. Yeah, you're going to be on the ground for it. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of it. And like, look, it should be. He was a super high lottery pick that came with this crazy statistical pedigree and then just didn't play. So you almost, independent of anything else, you kind of got to find out what's there, because the Rockets just, like, Jabari Smith just signed his extension. There's going to be plenty more of those coming. Reed Shepherd, before you know it'll be eligible. So you got to get some do some fact finding, get some information there. Finney-Smith here, though, maybe we'll touch on this more so with the Lakers, I think, when we get to them. But this was surprising to me, because for him, this is, and I'm going to regurgitate what I said earlier on our BR stream, like, doesn't this feel like he decided that the Rockets were just the better win now option, because the Lakers have way more minutes to give him and could have done similar money?
I view it more as they weren't willing to do similar money, which is what we'll get into with them, is that they're really prioritizing keeping their books clean, because you could have paid him more than that. I expected him to opt in, like for the $15 million or whatever it was, and extend off that number, and now he ends up signing for less than like the non-taxpayer mid-level per year. So yeah, he locked in more long-term security, and he is, what is he, 31, 30?
Yes.
So he's like in his 30s. But yeah, this just surprised me, because I kind of thought if the Rockets were going to do anything, it'd either be maybe another trade or just be extensions, or maybe they would sign, like, would they just come in and pick up one of these guards like that could handle the ball, run the offense for a little bit? I did not see, no, you know what, we don't have like enough perimeter defense on this team. Like we have to go get more. I mean, they have sufficiently insulated Alperen Şengün, who got better defensively, but then like he could do nothing, and they're probably still going to have a top 5 defense when he's on the court. Yeah. Like just insane. Their shape. How do you feel about the offense overall now, though?
I mean, it just, you remove Dylan Brooks, you remove Jalen Green, you swap in Kevin Durant. The offense is just better, period. I would assume, too, that, yes, hot take. Finney-Smith, I think, will help a little bit. I mean, yeah, he's got more offensive juice, I guess, in a half-court setting particularly than like Eason does. I think, really, if you're looking for real offensive growth, independent of the Durant deal, organic. It's coming from Cam Whitmore. It's coming from Reed Shepherd. It might be coming from Jabari Smith. So, yeah, the
How is
Rockets
Cam Whitmore supposed to get minutes on this team now with Dorian Finney-Smith here?
It's going to be tough. I mean, he may be a trade candidate. Look, Finney-Smith at that number is a great trade candidate. Every good team should want Finney-Smith on that
Right.
contract.
That's
like
awesome
the Rockets
point.
just happen. Like he's a great trade asset now, if nothing else. If Whitmore proves to be so good that you can't keep him off the floor, and Smith on that new deal, you have to play him. Well, all right, we could trade Finney-Smith for positive value. Like no problem.
And finally, do you think like Jabari Smith will like Tari Eason is also extension eligible? Do you think he gets significantly less than 5 years and one? So let's just say like an average of what does this end up being, like $25 million a year, close to it? I guess because he's gonna play. He's always been a lower minute guy than Jabari Smith Jr. for the most part. But now the Rockets have a trillion bigs. Is that so? What would you do? You think one? I think he'll get an extension the way the Rockets have handled their business. What do you like? If Jabari Smith was almost $25 million a year, do you think he's gonna crack 20?
I don't think so. I wonder. I'm not as certain that he's going to get an extension. You can't do it for everybody. And I think Eason, while he has like very clear positive ways to positively impact the game, I just don't know if offensively he's at a level where you need him to be to just go 20 million a year. I think like, again, 20 million isn't what it used to be. But I would either hold off or see if he's willing to take 15, 16, something like that as a starting salary.
We are going to talk about the Lakers now, Grant. So in addition to losing DFS, you want to take us through what else they got going on? Nothing big, right?
No, nothing big. Just LeBron James opting in for the first time in his entire career. And look, like that's one to unpack. We had Dave McMenamin reporting earlier this afternoon that, look, that essentially James hasn't asked for a trade. There's been no discussion about that. The fact is, this is sort of the way for him. Opting in is kind of the way to, if you wanted to get yourself traded, that's the step one, as opposed to doing another 1+1 or some of the other options that may have been there. To me, the question is, was this a LeBron decision to pick it up, or was it a Lakers broadcasting to him that, hey, maybe another deal's not really there for you if you opt out? Certainly an extension may not be there, that kind of stuff. So this is kind of the core question for the Lakers. Some of the other moves, I mean, signing Jake LaRavia for 2 years and $12 million is, I kind of like that signing, but I don't know if that gives us any information on what you mentioned earlier related to Finney-Smith leaving, which is to say, are the Lakers just kind of not gap yearing it, but maybe looking more towards next season and reorienting around Luka? Like, yeah, maybe reorient around Luka no matter what, because he's clearly the new cornerstone. But I think a core offseason issue here is LeBron the guy that's not sure about the Lakers, or are the Lakers not sure about LeBron? And some of the Finney-Smith one, as you pointed out, kind of signals it might be that the Lakers are not sure about veteran, long-term, big money guys anymore.
Right. That's my read on it completely. I like the LaRavia signing. I felt bad for Kings fans. It was really funny. A Kings fan, I think his name was Fred, like when I posted about it, said, it's so sad that Kings fans should be gutted that Jake LaRavia left Sacramento, but that he's become a punchline because they lost Dorian Finney-Smith just to sign him. It's like, that's the bar. Man, I feel for Kings fans. He is going to do a lot of the same stuff defensively, maybe with even more positional flexibility than Dorian Finney-Smith at this juncture. I don't know if I'm going to trust him offensively as much. I wouldn't. But I think that this is just, they're on this long-term plan with a short-term like cap sheet. And I will say, I would be curious to know what their plans are in 2026, because I'm going to give you a list of what could be the best free agents. The best one is Luka Doncic, who they already have with his player option. Paolo Banchero, he's going to get an extension from Orlando. Surprised we haven't heard about it already, quite frankly. Jalen Williams of Oklahoma City, would you guess that he signs an extension?
Not going anywhere.
De'Aaron Fox, I would guess he gets an extension. Chet Holmgren, not going anywhere. Kevin Durant, I would guess that he probably signs an extension. Trae Young is a player option. We're going to get, look, I got two teams I'm prepared to say some pretty incendiary stuff about, and the Hawks are one of them. He was out there recruiting Luke Kennard and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So I feel like he might get extended, but okay, Trae Young and Luka, you're not going to pair. They were traded for one another. They're not going to be paired together. After that, it's like, oh, LeBron. So it's like Damian Lillard, Zach LaVine, James Harden, Mikal Bridges, Norman Powell, Kristaps Porzingis. Grant, stop me. Nikola Vucevic, Austin Reeves.
All I'm hearing, Austin Reeves again. All I'm hearing is that we're going to be here a year from now, or let's say 11 months from now, going, man, there's just nobody in this 26 free agent class. Remember when everybody thought that free agency was coming back? Like, that's bleak, man. I don't know what to make of let's just, again, I'll just recap it. LeBron opts in. So, like, was there a deal on the table from the Lakers that he didn't want because he thinks there's a better contender out there? Or was, like, I don't know. I think that framed this way now, what you're talking about, it kind of makes the gap year thing seem stupid. Because who's out there that you're waiting for? Like, don't you have to go for it? Are you going to wind up with two better players than year 23 LeBron and Luka by, like, next summer? With, like, Luka re-upped and whoever else? It doesn't sound like it.
Can now I go into my what should be the conspiracy theory of gap years that I could lay out as what they should do? They should trade LeBron to the Phoenix Suns for Bradley Beal. So two no-trade clause guys. You have Bradley Beal on your books for 2 more years. Then in 2027, as of right now, one of Luka's really good friends in the NBA, Nikola Jokic, going to be a free agent. Maybe bet on that class. Bet on free agency coming back around then. The Suns could maybe, if they can get under the second apron, can you get Malawach out of them? You still need a big on this team. That's like, you have other like teams that you could talk to, but I'm not against the Lakers planning for the future or having this. Like, I'm kind of against a gap year because you said this. So I'm stealing what you said. There's no guarantee that Luka's next 5 years are better than the previous 5 because of how fucking good those previous 5s, maybe with the exception of this past season, were. So I guess I just don't understand. They could be waiting for the next trade, but now you're really kind of banking on Lakers exceptionalism because you're not going to have you're never going to have the best package in a trade for a star. And as we just saw, you got Luka Doncic by doing that. So is that what you're waiting for? Is it's not the free agent? It's who's the next star? Like, honestly, like the way out their name, that'd be like they only want to go to the Lakers. They have the leverage to make it happen. Like, is it maybe Jokic? I feel like it's more likely Luka leaves to go to Denver than vice versa, quite frankly.
Right. Jokic seems like the last guy that's like, let me get to the big market. Not that you know there would be appeal in playing with Luka, but I'll just jump ahead a little bit. Like, Brook Lopez went to the Clippers for a number the Lakers could have matched, right? Like, I guess, and look, as Taib notes in the chat, like, DeAndre Ayton's still out there. It seems like that's a decent chance that Ayton will be the guy they end up with, but I don't even know now.
Do you know what would have been the funniest thing ever? Is if the Brooklyn Nets had just claimed him. They can't.
That would have been an interesting use of cap space. We're not doing winners and losers, but the Lakers are not coming out of this looking so hot. I would say that.
It kind of makes Nico Harrison look worse for losing that negotiation somehow.
Yeah, right. Too. Look, the last thing I'd say, I take your point that maybe there's a 2027 scenario where there is like a Luka, there is a Jokic team up situation. I'm not real comfortable betting on. Like the Heat have kind of fallen into this too. Like, oh, they're really targeting this free agent offseason, right? Like, but like they just dry up. It keeps happening over and over where we think there's gonna be this treasure trove of free agents out there, and you're really gonna want cap space for this one summer. And like, how often has it worked out? Was the last one when the Knicks saved all their money for KD and Kyrie and got neither? Like, even that isn't a foolproof plan.
It was the Nets kind of doing the same thing. It was like they saved
their
money
just
for
came
that,
over the top.
And they did it. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. I guess we just have to wait and see. Maybe it's but it's like they're just not. I keep coming back to the package. It's how do you get Giannis? How do you even? What if Bam wants out of Miami? I just like how are you actively getting the Anthony Davis trade for Luka was just such a unique circumstance. So yeah, there's a lot of offseason left, but I'm very confused by what the Lakers are doing here. I'm not gonna lie. I have no idea where we're going next, Grant. Oh, but it's to Atlanta.
Oh, you love it.
I love it. So they're adding Nickeil Alexander-Walker on a 4-year, $62 million deal that's coming via sign and trade. It's costing a 2027 second and cash, and they're signing Luke Kennard for 1 year, $11 million. That's coming out of the non-tax MLE. They already acquired Kristaps Porzingis, and they are losing Caris LeVert to Detroit for 2 years and $29 million. Oh my God. Can I just tell you that I'm in love with the Hawks offseason? And the fact that they, like, use the DeJounte Murray trade exception, like, that's how they're getting Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like, holy fuck. Like, kudos to it. Like, why was Ansi not running this front office the entire time? And why were they ever looking for someone to come out over the top of him if this is what they're doing behind the scenes? This team is like, they got some shooting around Trae Young. The ball handling could be a little light, but, like, you do have Jalen Johnson can do that. Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You have Dyson Daniels. Maybe you're letting Zachary Risacher explore more on that end. This team is like, Grant, I mean, this is just in the moment, like prisoner of the moment type shit, but I feel like they're going to be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference next season.
It's not out of the question. I think, like, we go back and we talk a lot about, like, do you really want the Tyus Jones type as your backup point guard, or could you get away with, like, well, we've got 2 or 3 guys that can kind of share the playmaking load, and, like, is that enough? You know, it depends on the situation, I guess. But in this case, like, Alexander Walker, I don't love him running second units, but man, he really can dribble and he can create shots. Like, he's pretty good at that. Same thing with Kennard. Kennard is known for being one of the best 3-point shooters, like, of his era, but there's enough, like, pick and roll, zip, and, like, he's a good passer. So, and like, Alexander Walker's defense offsets Kennard's. Like, those two just as a second unit backcourt, that's nails, man. Like, those guys complement each other really well. I think you do get enough playmaking, especially if maybe you leave, like, Risacher out there or Jalen Johnson, especially out there. Dyson Daniel, like, you can mix and match enough here to get, I think, plenty of ball handling, like, in support of or behind Trae Young. It's just, this is just win after win after win for Atlanta. I can't remember the last time I'm sure we said this about a team last summer and we're probably wrong about it, but, like, they just keep stacking these additions that all seem to make a lot of sense.
I may have said that about the New Orleans Pelicans last offseason after the DeJounte Murray trade with the Atlanta Hawks. Who's to say?
But who's who could ever possibly look that up? Not me.
A couple chats to catch up on BJ. I love what the Lakers are doing as a Celtics fan. And also, BJ says, Hawks play this masterfully. They added good players, but Kennard and KP on 1-year deals so they can duck below the tax next year if needs to and try again, especially at center. Yeah. Darth Van Digo, Hawks are going to be fun next year. Yeah, they are. And I will say this will be, like, a good case study of, I know Jalen Johnson's there, but, like, how good can your defense be with Trae Young? Because I think the thing that's gone under talked about, except with Hawks fans, who I think it's gone over talked about, so we're going to try and course correct here, he's tried a lot harder on defense. And, like, it hasn't, like, the effort level matters, but he's just at such a disadvantage. But now you surround him with guys like Risacher, Onyeka Okongwu's there. If Porzingis is healthy, Dyson Daniels is a monster. And now Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who, if he played more last season, would have had an all-defense case himself. So this is just, like, absurd. Glasgow doing the Zach Lowe. Should I try and do it? Caw! Yeah, I'm on the Hawks bandwagon. I like this team around Trae Young better than any other team they've ever put around him. Yeah, and it's funny because Nickeil Alexander-Walker does the type of stuff defensively that I think the Hawks believe that DeJounte Murray would do, but that was, like, kind of never his brand. Like, that was more of a gamble type situation. He was rangy. I love the Hawks offseason. I don't have a bad thing to say about it, and if this is the take that blows up in my face, so be it. And by the way, that pick they got from the Pelicans, I know Pelicans fans, a lot of them,
we didn't even mention that.
I know they don't want to hear this, but like, they could be a Giannis destination if they have the salaries, like, for next offseason if they need. They have some of, like, the prospect equity. I'm not saying they should go that route, but we're going to talk about the Pelicans in a little bit because honestly, and if there are Pelicans fans in the chat, I'll bookmark it and save it. I want to have an honest discussion because I've only been called names, or you've made fun of my appearance or my voice or whatever, and fine, whatever. We're on video. That's fair game. I've yet to hear a compelling argument other than, like, oh, you guys don't know. That's not compelling. You don't know ball. Derek Queen is going to be a Hall of Famer or something. This isn't about Derek Queen. It's about asset management specifically. Like, if you like what the Pelicans are doing, please explain to us. I'm genuinely asking you to please explain to us why. Because I think this is honestly one of the most, like, all-time dumb off seasons that we've seen, and it's only a couple weeks old.
I co-sign your Hawks support and I co-sign your Pelicans derision. I would also add, if you do think that you can logically justify New Orleans offseason, you're sort of already wrong. So do your best.
Grant's being a little bit less, but Grant's saying the quiet part out loud is really
I don't
what
care.
it is. One of the I'm dying at the comment from Ryan Poe and Derek Queen will be a Hall of Famer. That would do it. So the Pistons, is this you or me?
I'll take it. They signed Caris LeVert, which was kind of in the rumor mill for a while, and maybe Atlanta just knew we got some better options. 2 years and $29 million for him. That's part of the non-tax. That's probably the full non-tax mid-level based on the $29 figure. Could do it with cap space. This is kind of the issue with the Pistons. They have a couple routes to go here, depending on what they do with Beasley, what they do with Schroeder, who I believe we've got reports is going to the Kings, but that's a kind of a weird one floating out there. Undisclosed years and dollars. Don't know yet. That's, hey, first day of free agency. Also signed Paul Reed for 2 years and $11 million. The second year is non-guaranteed. We have the Malik Beasley federal investigation for betting on NBA games and props during the 23-24 season. He was up for a 3-year, $42 million deal. It was reported before all that. Suffice to say, he is not up for that deal right now. And who knows what that ultimately does to the Pistons offseason. I guess, I mean, it kind of changes whether they need to use cap space or not, because if they're not bringing him back at all, then there's a couple other routes to go.
I was going to say, is there a chance it makes it we have to talk about the basketball and the cap element of this. Is there a chance it makes it better because if his market just comes out from underneath him and he's going to be allowed back to play, he could just sign the minimum with Detroit and or off 120% raise or whatever from if they're able to continue carrying his cap hold, and then they'll have early bird rights next offseason. Like, they could wind up keeping him without having to use their non-taxpayer mid-level to get him. So that would be, I guess, the silver lining, but there's really, like, this opens up a different can of worms about betting and sports, and we just don't,
right. And really, if it is true, which I'm fairly sure it is, we agree that Schroeder is gone. Then what are, like, I guess you're thinking about Tim Hardaway Jr.'s bird rights, maybe, like, and keeping him around, or like, I don't know.
Talk dirtier to me, Grant.
He was already like the third guy of the Beasley Schroeder THJ like trio that they were concerned about. It was kind of like, let's figure out the first two, and then whatever's left we'll give to Hardaway if we want to at all. Yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about LeVert. What do you think of LeVert there, just as an on the court piece in that rotation?
I think it's a perfect size deal for them. That's very movable. And then it's both insurance against maybe Jaden Ivey not working out as your kind of secondary ball handler next season, but it's also like he can play alongside Cade and Jaden Ivey. I think he's improved as a shooter enough. We saw improvements defensively in Cleveland, at least, maybe not so much when he was traded to Atlanta. I really like this as just sort of and what I also like about it is what it kind of informs us, and there's still a lot of offseason left, but about the Pistons summer is that they're not going to exaggerate the impact of last season. As you still kind of need to let this core marinate, see what you have in them if you give them another year mostly together, or make those sort of step ladder improvements like you are with Caris LeVert. So I like this, especially in the face of, like, if you can't really bring back, like, why would you bring back Malik Beasley when that investigation is going on? This feels like a smart pivot because it's not, you're losing a lot. As of right now, you've lost a lot of 3-point shooting, but at least Caris LeVert's a little bit better as a shooter, not than Beasley, but just better as a shooter overall. He's played more off the ball. I think he has Cleveland to thank for that. And you can, like you said, you could still bring back Tim Hardaway Jr. So in the face of, like, I would have preferred Malik Beasley not to have bet on basketball games and then been able to bring him back, but
allegedly,
this is
hold on,
right, allegedly. So I like what they did here. Like, they had to pivot quickly, it seems, or even having to pivot at all when you thought you were going to bring back this guy. I think it was smart by them. How do you feel?
No, I like it. I was just going to raise the issue. If he doesn't really address the shooting issue, he's kind of another. Maybe Jaden Ivey comes back, and in addition to being kind of helping shoulder the load from a playmaking perspective, he can also improve on his shooting. I would have felt a lot better if they had just not had the Beasley issue and could have brought him back, and then you're not thinking so much about the shooting. That just isn't a major strength for LeVert throughout his career. He's had some high points, but that'd be my one nit to pick there on a deal I otherwise like.
They do need to probably figure out a way to get some extra shooting in here if you don't think you're going to have Beasley, because that is what's going to help Cade shine. And I don't know, like, do you go to the trade? You have options on the trade market, I guess, so they can look at that. I'm going to guess the Timberwolves are next, and they're not. The Grizzlies are, so just whatever. So, Memphis, the big one. They renegotiated and extended Jaren Jackson Jr. It's a 5-year, $240 million deal in total. It's not the actual deal, but that's his now contract value. So the extension is 4 years. They still have to create cap space. This is another situation where it was reported that it's like the Rockets signing Clint Capella, and they renegotiated. They extended Jaren Jackson Jr. because I can't talk without having the money to do so. They have to bump his salary up by about $10 million, and that should bring his salary for next year right up to what his max would have been in free agency of 2026. Zai Glasgow says Shams starting out with the Grizzlies news out the wazoo. Yeah, that was really funny. Grant, we have the other moves that, like, well, here's how they're going to recoup that cap space. My read on this so far is that Cole Anthony is going to get bought out, and there's no, like, if he's giving back half of his salary so that the Grizzlies can make up the difference for Jaren Jackson Jr., why have we not heard about his next destination? Because that would feel incredibly weird. They did re-sign Santi Aldama, 3 years, $52.5 million. Just as a note, that's less than, on average, the non-tax MLE. And they signed Ty Jerome, 3 years, $27.7 million, which is the room exception. How do you feel about, and you made an interesting point before we hopped on, how do you feel about the Triple J renegotiate and extend?
Yeah, I think a couple benefits here. One, in terms of the new money he's getting, if you over the new 4 years, basically, it's right in line with the 4-year max he could have gotten from another team. And then this is a Kevin Pelton note, and we were both like, oh shit, I wish I would have thought of that. I think one other way you can frame, if you're like sticker shocked by this, which maybe you're not. I mean, Jackson is a borderline all NBA player, but critically has not officially been one in the time frame that would affect his contract. This takes the possibility of him, had he not done this, had the Grizzlies not worked his extension this way as a renegotiate and extend, had he not signed anything, he could have made an all-NBA team this coming season and then been eligible for the bigger max. So you take that off the table as Memphis. And maybe if you think this is a bit of an overpay, part of that expenditure is going to eliminating the possibility of a massive salary, which, like, again, if a guy makes all-NBA, typically you're like, well, okay, I guess that's a good thing. But this does a potential selling point here is that it does save the Grizzlies from having to deal with that. I think it's a fair deal for Jackson overall. I just keep laughing, thinking like, did Cole Anthony go like, hold on, what? Like when he got that deal, because it like as if Cole Anthony knew the Grizzlies cap sheet and realized that he was going to have to be gone. John Conchar is another guy that could maybe waive and stretch, I think, but Anthony is someone that seems like he's going to be the one. I wanted to ask you about Ty Jerome. This is a team that has Ja Morant, that has Scottie Pippen Jr., one of my favorite backup point guards, and now here's Ty Jerome at a dollars to production deal. Looks great, right? 3 for 27. That's totally fine. Are you reading anything into this with respect to like what the backcourt point guard rotation might be? It's a little interesting.
I think they probably view it as you can play Ty Jerome with one of the other two. I don't view this as like, oh, the Cavs traded for Lonzo Ball, so now they're going to trade Darius Garland. Like, it feels like that. This isn't a through line to them trading Ja Morant.
Is that what you read into that trade?
No. I'm saying that's what people. There was the immediate reaction of, oh, Darius Garland, could he now be on the block because of Lonzo Ball? And the answer is no. With Ja Morant, I feel like Ty Jerome can play with Ja, or he can play with Scottie Pippen Jr. But also, Ja tends to miss time. Did you know that?
I was going to say it wouldn't be a shock if Ty Jerome did have to play a fair amount for that reason.
And so I think this is more about that. They're built just as well, I guess, to insulate him defensively as Cleveland was. So we'll see if he's better for them should Memphis get to the playoffs. I think dollar for dollar. I mean, this sort of comes down to, since apparently Cole Anthony's leaving, would you rather have Desmond Bane, or would you rather have Ty Jerome and like some picks and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope? So it's like, it's kind of a fair question to ask because you would have renegotiated and extended Triple J anyway. You would have kept Aldama anyway. So that's kind of, they've decided like picks and Ty Jerome. that they're better off. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, excuse me. I don't know why I keep forgetting him. And then a cheaper dead money hit for Cole. I don't know what the hell is happening there. This is another bizarre type of report.
Yeah.
But
Mel wants to know, with these moves, is Memphis a top 6 team in the West?
So who are let's do that, because a part of the Pelicans fans' justification has been the only teams in the West guaranteed to make the playoffs next year are Denver, OKC, and Houston. And that's why the Pelicans are making the moves that they are. I still don't understand that.
There's a team in Minnesota that would have an issue with that.
So if we were talking about guaranteed to be in the top 6 right now, it does feel like there's 4 spots. Minnesota, OKC, Denver, and Houston, correct?
Minnesota, OKC, Denver, Houston. Sure, I would agree with that. I might add to that list before I got to the to the Pelicans. I think the Clippers should be in that conversation, as like they've added. We haven't gotten to them yet, but I think we put Golden State in that conversation based on how they finished the regular season last year. They haven't really done anything, but I put them up there.
Excuse
and then
me, sir.
Huh?
They've done stuff. They've picked up team options. Okay,
sure.
Like let's pump the brakes there.
We'll do 40 minutes on them. Relax. I know Quinten Post was part of a transaction technically, so yeah, we're gonna get there. It'll be behind the paywall, but we'll get there. Yeah, I guess like I think Memphis is. I'd say borderline. I mean, it's going to come down to health, right? If the Warriors lose Steph for 25 games, then they're going to lose 19 of them. And if Memphis can't keep Ja on the floor and they have some other bad luck, then who knows? But I mean, Dallas would be in that conversation. Phoenix, Portland, I think you might put in a similar tier to Memphis. Maybe that's a little unfair to the Grizzlies, but I don't know that at this early stage of the offseason, I don't think that's way off base.
Yeah, there does feel like there's those 4 teams, and then there's things that could turn to, like in Dallas as an example. Okay, with D'Lo, and then Kyrie comes back. What does Cooper Flag look like as a rookie? They're deep. They should be defensively monsters overall. So you could see them being like a top 3 team in the West, but it feels like there's a clear cut. Okay, there's OKC, then there's Houston, Denver, maybe loop Minnesota into that same tier. And then there's like, I don't know, like 8 or 9 teams that that you could just see anything happening with them. And Memphis is, if you told me Memphis was the 3rd seed, that wouldn't shock me. If you told me they were the 9 or 10 seed, that also would not shock me.
Yeah, I could see that.
Where are we going next, Grant? Because not even I know, apparently.
We're going to Cleveland, where you've just reported the Lonzo Ball acquisition means Darius Garland is cooked. So before we get to that, Sam Merrill's back, 4 years, $38 million. Pretty good value deal, in my opinion, just for one of the better shooters in the league. And that he's not gonna change the game defensively, but he's good enough. I think he's better than most specialist types at that position. Also, Isaac Okoro going out for Lonzo Ball. Okoro's got 2 years and $22 million left. Lonzo 2 years, $20 million. That second year of that deal is a team option. Ty Jerome also gone. It's just the hilarious thing I could never stop repeating when discussing Jerome was like, if he signed for $14 million, it would cost the Cavs close to $100 just because of where they are in the apron. So he was always going to be a goner. I don't know. You want to start with Sam Merrill or Lonzo here? I think maybe Lonzo's more interesting just because he gives such a different sort of skill set dynamic than Okoro. We haven't really talked about this one. What's your feeling on the Lonzo of it all?
So I love the acquisition, and I think you are giving up some type of more conventional half-court ball handling and playmaking by going from essentially Ty Jerome to him. But you're getting, I would say, a better shooter. You're getting a better defender. He has great positional size as well, so you can play him with Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland. Depending on the team, you could play him with both of them, like depending on the opponent. And I also think that he will do more to keep those secondary lineups in Cleveland. Like, you can really get them out in transition. Lonzo Ball either throw the hit-ahead pass, he'll catch them, so we'll keep you moving there. So what he kind of lacks in that traditional playmaking, he's going to make up for with pace setting. Now, the issue is you could say, the minutes. Like, he only played 777 last year. But, like, Ty Jerome didn't actually play that many more because he wasn't eligible for some of the awards. Cleveland's so deep. If you believe Sam Merrill's able to take on a bigger role, I think, and you have DeAndre Hunter there, your perimeter minutes are so locked in anyway that I think this is a reasonable gambit to make. You look at the Ty Jerome money and you're like, man, that would have been pretty good value. So you're taking a risk with Lonzo, but I didn't like Okoro for this team because everything he did defensively, I just think he gave back too much offensively in the playoffs for them.
Right.
And now that you have Hunter and Dean Wade, if he's healthy, like you just Max Strus, like you just have better options. So I really did love the Lonzo trade for them. One, I want to know what you think, but I also like losing Ty Jerome. Like how do you like? Does this offset it at all? Do you view it as an upgrade when you're looking at the fit of everything on the Cavs now? Like where are you at?
So if you'll allow me, I'll engage in some gross oversimplification. Isaac Okoro could not get on the floor in high leverage games and late game situations in the playoffs for the Cavs. It's just like he would have good regular seasons. We would start to believe in the shooting, and then he just became someone you couldn't trust for rotation caliber minutes in postseason games. I think Ty Jerome fell prey to a little bit of that too, right? Like suddenly his tricks didn't work.
Right.
And Lonzo Ball, while I would concede you have to just say like it is unlikely that he is healthy enough after a full season or whatever that amounts to for him to be on the floor in like critical situations in the postseason. But if he is healthy, I do think it's much easier to imagine him being out there, right? Like whether it's in the start of the fourth quarter in a second round series or whatever, because Garland is resting or Mitchell's resting, I think Ball could be out there. I really do. I think because of the defense, because of the shooting, because of the playmaking, he's not someone you attack. He does add value on both ends. He's not someone you leave alone beyond the arc. So like he's a guy that, if he's right, is the type of player Cleveland has to have, right? And not as a starter, but as a playable postseason guy. And I think Okoro wasn't that. And I think Jerome wasn't that. Now, they might be much more valuable innings eaters during the season, but I don't think Cleveland should care about that. So that's why I like the Ball acquisition, even if you've got to acknowledge like there's a highly likely chance that he doesn't hold up physically. I think it's worth the risk.
BJ in the chat says Ball costs more than what Jerome got from Memphis. Did not see that coming, and clearly Cleveland didn't either. Maybe, but I would also argue that this isn't a perfect analog, but Isaac Okoro is at 11 million or 11.2, whatever it is, next year. Ty Jerome's at so if Isaac Okoro is at an average annual value of 11, Ty Jerome is at an average annual value of 8 and change, 19 million, let's just say. They got like kind of the one, like there's some trade-off because Lonzo doesn't do everything Ty Jerome does. He doesn't do everything Isaac Okoro does on defense, but he's a two-way player, and you got that for $10 million. So I would argue that they viewed it as we're going to kind of combine these two players into one player and save money that way.
Yeah.
Next up, we are on to the Charlotte Hornets. One of the most bizarre trades that I've seen in recent memory. They traded Yusuf Nurkic to Utah for Colin Sexton and a 2030 second-round pick. That pick is most favorable of the LA Clippers and Utah. I would just like to point out that it's not a typo. The Charlotte Hornets are the team who received the draft pick in this trade. They also signed Mason Plumlee for 1 year at the veterans minimum because they have no bigs. It was Musa Diabate is the only big man under contract for them. If you want to include Grant Williams, who's like Grant's taller than Grant Williams, I think. Moved Josh Okogie's guarantee date back from June 29th to July 15th. That's interesting if you're just thinking of trade possibilities. And they also, just as a reminder, Grant and I think have already talked about this, or maybe it was Mort and I. They traded Mark Williams to Phoenix for Vasile Micic, familiar friend there. Liam McNeely, who was the number 29 pick, and then a 2029 first-round pick that'll be the least favorable of Minnesota, Phoenix, and Utah. Can I just ask about – well, actually, I think we need to talk about that with Utah, who I'm sure will be up next. What do you make of what Charlotte is kind of doing here? Like, because the Colin Sexton, you could look at it two ways. Do you think that they're preparing to kind of like, oh, like, it's the East. It might be a little bit more wide open. We're going to see what happens with him. You're going to throw Con Knipple back into the fold if LaMelo and Brandon Miller stay healthy. And you think maybe we get a better year from Tijon Salon or Miles Bridges? Or is this just a front office looking at it and saying, like, we don't know what's going to happen with Trey Mann. He was injured, and are we going to bring him back? Colin Sexton's actually good. We might be able to actually get value for him at the trade deadline, and so they just pounced.
That's my first thought, is I just imagine it's easier to get something for Sexton at the deadline because more teams might be interested in that player type than would be in Nurkic. And I kind of almost looked at it more from Utah's perspective, just because this was one where I had to do like a triple take to like, wait, which the pick's going which way? Because they're like almost identical salaries, right? And identical contract.
You could have taken out the pick, and I still would have been like,
it's confusing. No, so I imagine Utah wanted to remove, and they just did it with Jordan Clarkson too in a different way, let's just get these guards out of the way so that it's gonna be George and Collier that are running the show, and Ace Bailey maybe is gonna get more on ball stuff. So if you just have Sexton out of the way, that's what it is. I don't know why they didn't just. I guess he's probably too good to buy out, but you could. I don't know. I like Charlotte getting Sexton, but it's somehow paradoxically easier for me to understand why Utah would move him. Just I don't know. This is a weird trade. We've supported the Hornets in general. This one just confusing.
I think from their perspective, though, I don't find it confusing because I landed on just whatever they're trying to do. Colin Sexton is the more valuable player than Yusuf Nurkic. Like that's just a fact that he's younger. Like he shoots. And we wanted more shooting around LaMelo Ball. I don't know how much those two are going to play together, to be clear. But like now you have Colin Sexton, who's not a motion guy, but he can shoot, and then Con Knipple on top of if Brandon Miller, and then if is Miles Bridges going to hit his threes. So this just feels like what have we talked about with Charlotte kind of at every turn the past couple of years with the Jeff Peterson-led front office. They've just been opportunistic. It seems like they're kind of playing the long game. They've not taken on long-term money. They didn't do that here. Colin Sexton's expiring. This just shows like a level of forethought from Charlotte that we are still maybe not entirely used to. Kind of like what's going on in Washington, where you talk about that might be our single most viewed video by the end of the season of a clip. Like the Washington Wizards fans, I guess maybe they're not used to the national people saying nice things about them. The Hornets are just like, this is smart. Like this, I don't know what's going to become of it. Maybe they don't turn them into anything. And yeah, you could say, well, like look at the center position. They had to go sign Plumlee. That kind of signals to me that they're not going to go out and do what the Lakers tried to do and overpay for Mark Williams. Like they're clearly going to long game this. So I tip my cap to Charlotte because you might not be able to necessarily see the vision of it on the court perfectly. But if Trey Mann's not going to be there, if you're worried about him being healthy, like you need a backup ball. Like it's not Josh Green. Well, say it. Go ahead.
Depends on if he's on the move or not, Dan. Yeah. If he's standing still, he's useless.
It's weird, but I love this for Charlotte. I don't understand what's going on in Utah, Grant. Would you care to take us through that?
Yeah, I would love to. They gave up the pick with Sexton. The Nurkic of it all, it's hard to understand. I just have to view it as we need to move Sexton to clear the decks for our younger players to be on the ball. We already mentioned the pick there, the 2032nd, with most favorable of the Clippers and Utah is going out. They also bought out Jordan Clarkson. Shout out to you. Congratulations. He's going to be a Knick for the vet minimum. They waived Johnny Juzang. I don't know what else is there to talk about here. Maybe do we want to talk about what the Jazz did not do, which is there's no Kessler extension yet. That's pretty much it.
I don't understand the theory of just doing what they did with Sexton, because if you were worried about getting clearing minutes, why was he not moved? Like, you're going to tell me that not at any point over the past couple seasons you couldn't have gotten second rounders for Jordan Clarkson or Colin Sexton at minimum? And
maybe this is Austin Ainge coming in and saying, let's do something.
We're not going to tank. We're just going to be actively bad. We're not going to futz with the minutes. It's just, yeah. So
there was a time where Nurkic was playing over Nikola Jokic. So maybe the Jazz are just ready to unlock that.
Now, here's the thing: is that time was short-lived.
Sure.
So this just feels like poor asset management by them. I feel like we don't know what the offers were. But you're going to tell me there wasn't going to be deals out there for Jordan Clarkson. Maybe we'll have to see how much he gave back in his buyout. But you couldn't have, you had to give up a second round pick to get. Is that what the market was in the NBA? This just feels like a misread. I understand the logic of we're really leaning into the youth movement now, and you cleared the way for Ace Bailey to get, you took off two of your highest volume on-ball guys, and now you have Ace Bailey, Isaiah Collier, and Keontae George as your highest on-ball guys, and maybe a little bit of Larry Markkinen sprinkled in. Walter Clayton's there as well. I don't, this is just, it's way underwhelming. The only thing I could think is with Jordan Clarkson is maybe he's been there so long and been kind of a good soldier that they did him the solid, and we don't need second-round picks for Jordan Clarkson. We want to take on money. So I understand that almost more than I understand the Colin Sexton deal. Was it they wanted to make sure he wasn't there, sort of take the club out of Will Hardy's bag, but they also wanted to preserve the salary slot, but they didn't want that salary slot to extend beyond next season. I'm having a lot of trouble understanding it. This is another one where the more I've read about it, it doesn't seem like anyone has a hold, or at least the cases I've seen for the Jazz have not been very compelling for it.
I would agree with that. This is so far the hardest deal to understand.
Also, not very hard to understand, but Jordan Clarkson's now a Knick. This is how I feel about it. It means that Russell Westbrook is not a Knick. So I kind of fave it. They're getting Jordan Clarkson for 1 year at the minimum, assuming he clears waivers. The Knicks also picked up the $2 million team option on Ariel Huck-Porty and declined the $3.5 million team option on PJ Tucker. And just rumor has it, per multiple reports, they've reached out to Al Horford. So they still have the mini MLE in their bag. For the value, Jordan Clarkson at the veterans minimum is like taking up the campaign minutes, sure. But it still kind of sucks because they don't have like the secondary guy who can drive offense for others. Like who are you trusting aside from Jalen Brunson to set up other players on this team the most? It might be Tyler Kolek.
I mean, I was going to say Bridges, but that wasn't going to be something I'd say and feel good about.
Yeah, fair. So I just I don't know. This is fine. I'm curious to see what the Knicks still don't have a coach, which is like less than ideal headed into free agency. What would you like to see them use their quickly before we move on? What would you like to see them use their mini MLE on? Like, would you support it being used on a big, or you've mentioned like you want to see more shooting, or you wanted them to get another ball handler, I believe, and Jordan Clarkson is that.
Yeah, Clarkson is. Yeah, I guess Clarkson. Look, if it were a Thibodeau kind of situation, first of all, like then the depth would matter less, but like you could see Clarkson kind of doing a Jalen Brunson as a backup where he's just really kind of dominating the ball and generating most of his own shots, and maybe that, I don't know, there's some value in like stylistic continuity there between the first and second units. I think you were kind of touching on this. He doesn't quite like scratch the itch of scorer / playmaker. Like he's won 6 man of the year. That now is kind of receding into the rear view a little bit too much. But he isn't he's by no means like the pure facilitator. So I think he's an upgrade. It doesn't like, I'm not going crazy over it. Mostly I'm thinking about what hasn't happened, which is a Bridges extension yet. That's just been my most interesting kind of Knicks offseason subplot, but maybe there's nothing to worry about there because Jackson's like the only guy in Memphis that's signed an extension. Those just haven't quite happened yet.
Yeah, but if he doesn't, like if we start to kind of like with the coaching search taking a couple weeks, if it's been a few weeks, you're going to start to wonder, are they just going to let this get to unrestricted free agency and either have to give him the 5th year or watch him walk? So
I don't think he should take what he can, the 4 for 156. If I'm him, I'm not doing it.
We just went through the list of free agents with the Lakers, so anyone who might just be choppering in to listen to this segment, like Mikal Bridges might end up being the best available free agent on the market next year.
Yeah, and even if he's not, it's not that hard to beat 4 for 156. It's just like that
could be
for a
4
player
for
like
157.
That. Easy. That's one way to do it. You just did it.
Glasgow says Knicks coaching search is like watching the person at the bar at 1:30 a.m. who will not go home alone. It's getting desperate. Mike Brown is getting a second meeting. He's reportedly the favorite. I will say he can do some stuff on offense, which is funny because wasn't he viewed, maybe I just have not been like covering the game long enough, wasn't he viewed as like a defensive-minded coach way back when, and now he's viewed as like this offensive savant?
I think it's definitely flipped. The Kings years, at least, well, the Kings year, the 1 year when they briefly set the record for offensive efficiency. I think that was a thing that happened, right? Something close to it. He got a lot of credit for that. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's who it's going to be, though, Dan. Like, I think Mike Brown's about as good as the Knicks are going to do.
Which is just sort of like, meh. And look, by the way, I will say, you better nail this offseason as the Knicks because Masai Ujiri's just floating around out there. And I know James Dolan is, like, still mad about how the Carmelo Anthony negotiations went and the Andrea Bargnani negotiations went after that. But, like they went after Masai in the past. Before they hired Leon Rose, Grant, do you remember that Masai was on their list?
Yeah.
So, if you're Leon Rose and you've already shown, like, James Dolan don't give no fuck about the CAA connections at this point. Like, he's the one who spearheaded the Thibodeau exit. So I'm just putting a pin in that. And so, like, if you fired your coach after getting the Eastern Conference Finals, there were compelling cases on either side. I've even said my initial take on the matter was just absurdly bad. But now we are getting to the point where, like, okay, now it's been a few weeks and we're in free agency. Like, ideally, you'd want to have, like, a coach in place now. And we've only heard, like, are you really waiting out, like, the Jason Kidd situation in Dallas to see if he gets an extension or not? Which is also uninspiring. Just, if you made it to the conference finals and you change the coach without making any big-time, let's say, upgrades, and then at the end result is Mike Brown or Jason Kidd. Like I have lots of questions at that point.
Don't care for that.
By the way, the other thing they have not done yet, which you have to keep an eye on, is just like you don't want Josh Hart and Jordan Clarkson, I think, coming off. I guess they are going to come off the same bench, but like that unit as the spacing could get weird unless you trust Clarkson shooting. So is Josh Hart going to be starting again next year, Grant? But like, or is Mitchell Robinson? Like, because you don't want Clarkson, Robinson, and Hart on the floor at the same time, at least for too many minutes.
No.
Our next team up. You want to take us through the Dallas Mavericks?
Yeah, Kyrie Irving back, 3 years, $120 million. He declined his player option, lowered his 25-26 cap number in the process. That also allowed Dallas to open up the mini MLE, which went to D'Angelo Russell, 2 years, $11.7 million. That was one of those deals that was out there like several days before it happened. It was maybe, I don't know how you felt, but that seemed to me like the most locked in deal. Dallas, obviously, at least until Irving comes back, is going to need an offensive leader, a ball handler. I think Russell's fine. Anyone who's listened to this for any length of time knows that I'm not a big D'Lo fan, but like this is a totally reasonable expenditure for him. I think he will help Dallas offensively. But other than that, fairly quiet around Dallas, unless you want to talk about Cooper Flagg, who is not a free agent.
Hardwood Knocks from B Rich. Hardwood Knocks is the only place you'll hear an Andrea Bargnani name drop on the first night of free agency in 2025. Yep, that's our brand. I think it's fine. Like if you were to get, I mean, for what they had available, it also makes the Kyrie deal look better. And like kind of regardless of who they signed, because okay, 3 years, 120, that lowered his cap number enough to open up the taxpayer mid level because they were over the second apron after they won the draft lottery. They weren't planning on that salary slot. I think
weren't they though, Dan? I mean, our fans. Nico Harrison said fans are finally starting to see the vision. This was it.
What a fucking asshole! I don't say that like I don't say that lightly. Like, are you kidding? The Mavs fans were supposed to see. Was your vision even? You're gonna get lucky as fuck in the draft lottery, and your timeline is that. Yeah, that was the plan, and like it just puts the onus on. Like, yeah, hopefully the fans can see the vision now. Like, dude, shut the fuck up! My God, take the microphone, take control of the reins out, man. I didn't want to go on a Nico Harrison rant right now. I need to stop this.
I didn't mean to trigger you. but I am not sorry about it.
This is just like the lack of the whole. Oh, I didn't know that fans are gonna be mad that we traded Luka. Dumbass. Like, just man, just some people. The lack of self-awareness of some people, including myself sometimes. But I've never tried to put the onus on. Like, yeah, the thing that I'm not saying, like, you guys didn't see the vision. My vision was that we were gonna win the draft lottery without even trying. And by the way, what did that do? What did that do, aside from give you more of an excuse to, like, not continue building around Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving?
Right. It's a complicated vision. It takes a while to understand it. I mean, and so we haven't really even fully realized. Look, I wish I believed in myself like Nico Harrison believes in himself. I would get a lot more accomplished if that were true.
There is some times where, like, arrogance is aspirational. And this, for me, is honestly not one of those times because he's such, like, an unstoppable moron about it. And it's unsufferable. Like, just listening to him, like, spin this beat, it's just so unsufferable. A 1.8% visionary. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I don't know why that triggered me. It's late where I live. Maybe that's why. Our next team is the Minnesota Timberwolves. I can guarantee you I meant to put them on sooner. So apologize to Wolves fans. I don't know how they ended up this far down. They signed Naz Reid for 5 years, $125 million. I really want your thoughts on that, Grant. Re-signed Julius Randle for 3 years, $100 million. He gets a player option on that third year. Then they had the sign and trade with Na, 4 years, $62 million to Atlanta. They received a 27 second-round pick and cash. This is the big one. They guaranteed Leonard Miller's contract for next year. I think this means that they're probably going to trade Rudy Gobert and Anthony Edwards and continue the rebuild around Leonard Miller. And they're bringing back Joe Ingles as just sort of like the Udonis Haslem role, except he's only been in Minnesota for a little bit less. But I want to start with what do you make of that? Even the new cap, like I saw 5 years and it stopped me in my tracks.
It was it seemed like a lot was my very first thought, both in years and dollars, because like Reed, I think maybe not to the same extent as some other guys, felt like, all right, well, the Wolves are going to need to beat the mid-level because certainly there'll be mid-level offers for him if he were to hit the market. I didn't think you'd have to go this high or this long in terms of years. And I do think it raises the interesting hypothetical of like, would you look? I think you can make the case that Reed, I mean, it's been basically proven, is the best backup big in the league. And I think you could make the case that there's a world where like you maybe move forward without Rudy Gobert and your defense gets worse, but he's okay at center. And you have Randall back and you can, Jaden McDaniels can play some four. But like a team that also has Randall back and that can play McDaniels at the four and that continues to have Rudy Gobert, do you give any pause and maybe think like, could you have just kept Alexander Walker and like for what he got? And would that be preferable than having Nas at this number? I mean, I think it's a fair question. I think I want to make clear, I think Reed is a really, really good offensive big. And I think there are scenarios where he could start for them. It's a big number for a backup. Just maybe that's the simplest way to put it. I'm surprised that Minnesota went this high for a guy whose utility is just kind of limited because of the guys they have on the roster at his around his position. What did you think?
I kind of fell in the same camp, and it's just, I know you said that maybe there is a scenario where, okay, if you move on from Rudy Gobert, he's just your starter. I just don't know what the defense looks like. It's
worse, that's for sure.
Right. And so they were in the 26th percentile last year of defensive efficiency when Randall and Reed play without Rudy Gobert. The rim protection during those minutes was actually pretty good. And so I'm wondering if this telegraphs two things. That they believe that Nickeil Alexander-Walker, given how, he's improved as a shooter, but that hasn't translated into the past two postseasons for him, at least not perfectly. So they viewed him as just more expendable, especially with Terrence Shannon and Jalen Clark on the roster. And then even Rob Dillingham, too. Maybe that's part of the calculus, because I would say Shannon and Clark, like, they're not going to be anywhere near the shooter, or at least they're not profiling as that now, that Nas been. But I'm wondering if it also kind of thinks that the Wolves believe that they could sustain better without Rudy Gobert, because if you put him into trade packages, it probably gets pretty interesting. I know he's older, but he's still just, you plop him on that roster, and during those minutes that he's on the floor, you're going to have like a top 7-8 defense at minimum. So that, I feel like I'm reading it that way, is that they decided Randall was the most like indispensable. I know he got a shorter deal, but like they don't have a second option on this team other than him. It's just it's Anthony Edwards, it's Julius Randle. Like Nas can't really do that. Mike Conley, like, can't even really drive the offense in that vein anymore. Maybe it's Dillingham one day, but it's not happening right now. Would you agree, though? Like, if you were to tier this when you're looking at their three main free agents, and we obviously know how this shook out, like, or is it like even throw Rudy Gobert into the equation then? So if you're to rank those four players in terms of being indispensable to the Wolves, it does feel like the Wolves decided Randall, Nas, Gobert, and Nickeil, and that was their rankings. Like, what would your rankings have been?
Well, I don't know what to do with. I think it is clear that of the three, it's Randall, Reed, Nas. Nas is gone. Randall got the highest annual value. Reed got the longest deal. So that Randall 1, Nas 2, Alexander Walker 3. I think it's interesting to frame it like you. I guess we sort of have both kind of talked about this in the context of like what this means for Gobert's spot on the team. I kind of think like in terms of like who this Wolves team is right now, and this is a team that's made the conference finals twice in a row. Gobert probably still is number one on that list, I think. But I also think what we're kind of butting up against is like the Nas deal suggests that the Wolves may not think that's the permanent state of things, or that there's another way. But like I like Gobert has his problems, and they're mostly on offense. I think we've been pretty clear in like hammering that home whenever we have the Gobert playoff discussion. But at the moment, he still matters a ton.
Let me point you to the evidence that he gets played off the court defensively. Where is it? Damn, I can't find it. Shit.
The damn Terrence Mann making 14 corner threes in one game, and the narrative sticks forever.
That's on Rudy Gobert.
Just gotta get out there already. I think the Gobert of it all is pretty interesting. I guess I would say Reed at this number certainly makes it more likely that a Gobert move is a possibility. That's maybe the conservative way to frame it.
What is Rudy Gobert making?
I don't know, 30-ish.
I mean, like, who's the player that you could get for that? Like, I'm just curious. I'm curious, like, the team that would also be interested. I think it would be out there. I want to be clear, but Minnesota's kind of strapped for other assets, but like what would make, and maybe is there a way where, okay, maybe you're bringing back a cheaper rim protector as part, like, honestly, what about like, I'm trying to make the money work in my head like immediately, and it's not going to. So this package is gonna need to be fleshed out a little bit more. But what about Rudy Gobert for Derek Lively and Klay Thompson?
I think I probably. Oh man, I was gonna say I would do that if I'm Minnesota, but that really puts Derek Lively being what we thought he was going to be as a rookie, like immediately, like prime wise, is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, because Lively would have to come in and be your defensive anchor in the middle, which, like, not out of the realm of possibility, but that's a little bit of a reach.
What about Klay Thompson and PJ Washington for Rudy Gobert?
Nah, I don't think that's moving the needle enough, especially. I don't know. Thompson is someone that you just might not be able to get on the floor for Minnesota in like big minutes.
What about Rudy Gobert for Karl Anthony Towns?
Now we're talking. You get Mitchell Robinson and Rudy out there. Good luck. Good luck, offenses.
Anything else on the Wolves before we move forward? I feel like they're not done. Because doesn't it feel like their offense still kind of they're maintaining the status quo, which I think is smart for the most part. But is it just uncork Dillingham more often? I don't know whether, or are you banking on Dante DiVincenzo having more of an even campaign? Now, you can't bank on Mike Conley being much better.
No,
right?
I think you're banking on Dillingham's rise, at least like offsetting Conley's further decline and maybe netting out as a positive overall at some point in this season. And yeah, more consistency from DiVincenzo. I'm not sure what else I'd see them doing. I mean, it's not, they're not super flexible at this point.
Would they put Rudy Gobert for like a LaMelo Ball construction? The Wolves like Rudy Gobert and Rob Dillingham for LaMelo Ball.
You really become obsessed with getting Rudy Gobert off of the Wolves. Why
I just don't. It's
what's
just
your problem?
Weird. They have. It's a. I don't know. Well, I mean, let me talk about the support for RFK Jr. really quick here. Do you have a few minutes? We can move on from the Timberwolves because I'm trying to trade Rudy Gobert everywhere. The Clippers. I'm ready to say some pretty inflammatory things about them after you take us through what they've done so far.
Transaction number one: re-signed James Harden for 2 years and $81.5 million. That second year's a player option. Also signed Brook Lopez. Didn't really have that on our bingo card. I mean, maybe discussed it in passing. He's going to back up Ivica Zubac's 2 years, $18 million. That's part of the non-tax mid-level. Also brought Nick Batum back, 2 years, $11.7 million. That is also a team option on the second year. That's after Batum opted out, but that was a fait accompli that he was coming back. I'm going to guess you're big on the Clippers offseason, Dan. Big positive. Lots of thumbs up.
This is just like, it doesn't. They still feel like they need another passer on this team, but like Brook Lopez is just your backup center now. That's insane.
Pretty good.
That's insane. Like that, in certain matchups, it's just like it doesn't, because if Ivica Zubac doesn't get played off the floor defensively, and now Brook Lopez, you can't play him off the floor offensively because of the stretch he provides. They're deep, and it's just like the problem is that they're one, like, James Harden rolled ankle away, I think, from maybe being a lottery team. You have enough depth, especially on the defensive end, where maybe you cobble together just sort of, those like pre-superstar Clippers team where they were just scrappy as hell. So that's something they need to look at, and we've seen a bunch of those names come off the board. I will say, if he could stomach playing with James Harden again, like a CP3, like, coming over here, like, kind of makes a lot of sense. Or, like, how badly does – he's not really a point guard, though. I was going to say, what is Trey Mann's market at the moment? Malcolm Brogdon, though, the Clippers now feels like the biggest no-brainer. That was my prediction, was that he would finally end up on the Clippers. The Brook Lopez didn't even cost you the entire MLE. I know he's old, but damn.
No, that's one of the better value signings that we've seen so far. I think, like, and really, I know when we talked about, like, what would you like, we agreed, the Clippers, among other things, could use a backup big, and I was like, I kind of want, like, someone that's going to give you a little different dimension from Zubac, like maybe some stretch. I was thinking of, like, the Boucher model, but, like, to get Lopez, who will provide that stretch, but just, like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, Zubac is a better defensive center, or was last year, but Brook Lopez was one of the best defensive players in the league, full stop, for a really long time. Like, so you're giving zero back defensively with him, especially against backups only, and you're getting that stretch. Like, I think you could really get up to some stuff with Harden, Kawhi, Lopez. Like, you're spacing the floor. Norm Powell's out there. Like, it's a pretty they could have some pretty interesting looks here, I think, with Lopez. And at that price point, it's just like, clear. I have to believe he picked the Clippers over teams offering more money. Somebody had to go full mid-level for him. I'd be stunned if that wasn't true.
Glasgow cracked it.
That's it.
Closer
to Disneyland. That's
100%. That's
Robin Lopez did it for Orlando, so easy peasy.
I feel like I want this team to just go out and trade for Kobe White right now. I don't know if I would pick them to win the title because OKC exists, but I would certainly pick them to be in the Western Conference Finals if they went out. Like, they are so well balanced and deep right now. It just feels like they're it doesn't even need to be Kobe White, but it just feels like if they sign Malcolm Brogdon, I just might be like, okay, there's a lot of guys with health issues here, but you're going to cobble together an 8 to 9 man rotation on any single given night.
Cole Anthony on the buyout market. How about that? That'd be fun.
Do you think he's a good enough passer?
Probably not.
It was a genuine question. If you said yes, I would trust you. I was genuinely asking.
No, I don't think that's really what he's out there to do so much. Great offseason for the Clippers. I can't get over the value for Lopez.
And they were a team, like, if Pelicans fans want to latch on to something, Grant and I destroyed the Clippers last offseason. And that did not age, like, all that well. But
I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, me neither. Good call. Our next team, the Bucks they're up to some shenanigans, and I would like the league office to go and investigate them. Now, they're going to an awful lot of trouble to maybe overpay Gary Trent Jr. and Dorian Prince at some point. But so they re-signed Bobby Portis for 3 years and $44 million after he declined his player option. I think that deal's largely fine, especially if you lose Brook Lopez. You need the other big next to Giannis, and as of right now, unless they're really in love with Jericho Sims, you're probably going to need Giannis to play center. Re-sign Gary Trent Jr. So here's where the shenanigans are coming in. Gary Trent Jr. gets 2 years and $7.5 million with a player option on the second year. Taurean Prince got basically the same deal with a player option on the second year. They did re-sign Kevin Porter Jr. 2 years and $11 million. I didn't put it up on screen because, again, this is just I'm frazzled tonight.
You put biannual. Everybody knows the biannual is $5.5 million, right? That's in everyone's
but the problem is the math isn't mathing on that because I think this is reporting where it's $11 million. I'm pretty sure the biannual is less than that over 2 years, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm wrong all the time. What the Bucks are clearly doing here is they are signing Gary Trent Jr. and Taurean Prince with the intention of you guys can opt out next year and we'll have your early bird rights, at which point they can give them a lot more money. And it's we saw the Clippers do this with Nick Batum, and I don't think they got fined or anything, docked a pick. But this is so egregious. You sold Giannis on a gap year. That's been the messaging out there. You did this with 2 players now. You can't tell me Gary Trent Jr. didn't have more money on the market. And is he coming back they said they play me at point guard because Damian Lillard's injured? First of all, I want to make clear. Good job, Milwaukee. This is smart. This is super smart. But as a tattletale, as a resident tattletale, I'd like Adam Silver to investigate this immediately. But I also question the Bucks' logic to where, okay, how much are you planning on paying? It's a percentage of above the average annual salary, but the average annual salary grant next season, I think it's going to be $15 million. Mm-hmm. So it's I don't need to see a Gary Trent Jr. 4-year, $80 million deal on the.
I would just like to put on the record that the views expressed by my co-host alleging conspiracy, blatant flouting of the collective bargaining agreement are his views. I believe the Milwaukee Bucks are acting on the up and up, and that Gary Trent Jr., who's one of the better three-point shooters in the league, in fact, did not have offers out there paying him more than $3.7 million a year. This is all perfectly above board, and I just really want to distance myself from this opinion as much as possible. Well, this feels a little shenanigan-y. I think you're right. It does happen before. Batum is the oft-cited example. Moving away from that, how do you feel just about the idea of so Giannis is gonna stay, I guess, because he hasn't left yet, and we've just got tumbleweeds blowing around on that front. And the deal is we're gonna just bring back the roster that wasn't good enough last year. Actually, and also lose Brook Lopez and also not have Damian Lillard at all. How are we feeling about the logic overall of the Bucks relative to Giannis at this point, Dan? Because I got some questions.
I honestly don't understand how they're peddling this gap here. I'm not even saying that they should trade him. I'm of the mind that you don't trade someone like Giannis, especially when you don't control your own draft until 2031, until he asks for it. But I'm just curious as to what are the merits of this? Like, what is it actually gaining you by the end? Is that, okay, we've now kept Gary Trent Jr. and Torrey Prince so we can overpay them next summer. Bobby Porter Jr. is coming back. We got out of the Brook Lopez business, and you could say, well, he was aging. The deal he signed wasn't going to set you back. Like, if he was willing to take the same money, that wasn't going to set you back. But clearly he wanted to contend, it seems like, and the Bucks aren't shaping. They have Giannis not shaping up to do that. It feels like what the Bucks are saying here is this is maybe it's a gap year of development and Ryan Rollins pops and Andre Jackson pops, but it's basically, oh, we're going to go through this season, at which point we will have the first round pick that we're using next year plus 2031 and 2033 to trade on top of this massive expiring contract from Damian Lillard. Let's go see who or what that could get us. I guess that's a fair gamble to take, but I don't know. This is just, I'm excited to see Point. Like, is Giannis going to be point center at some point next year, right?
I mean, unless KPJ is going to play point guard for 40 minutes a night. I mean, yeah, who else is going to do it?
I don't know. I'm asking you. Tell me.
I told you. I know. I guess I agree that Giannis is of the caliber that you just don't do anything until he asks you to, in terms of trading him. But like, there must have been a conversation where the Bucks go to him and say like, "Hey, we're not going to be any good. Are you cool? Like, is this what you want? Because we need to pivot and do some other stuff. And if we do this, and by this I mean the transactions that are on the screen, bringing back the same guys, like, we're kind of going to just be down a path that's going to be like not just 1 year, but this is going to be a while. Like, you're going to have to if you're in, you're going to be in and waiting for a lot longer than you might be comfortable with, and even then, nothing's guaranteed. Like, I don't know. It's almost like you're sort of asking him to ask you to be traded at some point as the Bucks, and maybe it's just better to have the superstar and be a one-team guy and never leave. But I don't know, man. Like, at some point, and we're past it. Like, the Bucks window closed. Like, and if it reopens, it's going to be a while from now.
I guess, but like, if they could get someone trading all that stuff next year, wouldn't that technically then make it all worth it because you bought yourself at least 2 more years with Giannis this coming season? And then
that's a big if, right?
You have to give them credit. Like, their vision's clearly working because I think Giannis's loyalty, like the emotional component, I truly believe that that's played a bigger role than they're telling him, like, look how many assists you could average without Damian Lillard or something. Right. Or look at what Ryan Rollins could turn into. But like with Gary Trent Jr. and Torrey Prince, they're probably selling them on the possibility of, I won't even joke about it. Like, yeah, the possibility of them opting out and then they're going to come back using early bird rights, definitely on the table now. But they could also say, hey, if we pivot in a different direction, with Dame down, you guys are going to have huge roles. And you're going to be able to inflate your market value to where you could then get your payday next summer when there will be more cap space floating around. That's probably most valuable when it comes to Gary Trent Jr. specifically. So you have to give him kudos, at least for this. Yeah, I just don't know. Like, I'm fine with everything they've done so far, but it's all right. You lost Brooklyn. Like, there needs to be another big here, right? Were they one of the teams that contacted Al Horford?
I mean, I think they might have been. The whole league was.
So I'm just, because they still have the mid-level, right? Like, they could use the full mid-level. I don't know. We have to wait and see, but I don't know how to feel with the Bucks, because I agree with everything you said where the window feels closed. But if they actually believe that, because these teams have more information than we do, there'll be players that want to team up with Giannis. But if you think that package is going to actually get you someone, but I think that leads you back into what did we talk about with the Lakers? You're never going to have the best package for anybody, even when you put everything on the table. And if you're selling the cap space dream, that's a 2027 thing. That's not a 2026 thing for the Bucks.
I guess I'd say, and maybe we're both kind of circling this idea, like, I don't know that we agree that this is the best, like, overall path for the Bucks to be taking, but given that this is the one that they've chosen, these moves are all like pretty good or very good in that context. You know, like, we don't agree with the vision, not to get back to Nico, but like, for what it is, this is about as well as you can execute it. And maybe that's disappointing, but it is what it is.
Yeah, you're trying to make me emotional again and have a temper tantrum by mentioning Nico's name. Our next team up is the Sacramento Kings. Do you want to take us? Do you want to take us through their mystery box?
They're signing Dennis Schroeder for I don't know. We don't have any details on that. I thought I had seen 2 years and at like mid-level money, but I couldn't find that report. So
aggregators, anyone who writes for a website or their own blog, I'd like you to aggregate what Grant just said. Grant Hughes reports.
That
Dennis
one time
Schroeder
somewhere he saw or thought he saw, but was probably wrong, the terms of the Dennis Schroeder deal. They also picked up the $2.3 million team option on Keon Ellis. They picked up the $2 million team option on Isaac Jones. Jake LaRavia, gone, 2 years, $12 million to the Lakers. Keon Ellis, we hadn't really discussed this. This was a situation where declining it and sending him into restricted free agency was on the table, but they picked it up, so he'll be unrestricted following this season, I believe. I don't think that was the right decision, Dan. But it's the Kings, so what are you going to do? Schroeder makes sense for them. They, especially if it is at the mid-level money I thought that I saw. They do need a point guard. I mean, this is his 10th team. He's really bounced around a lot the last couple of years, but I think he's fine there. I just, pardon me for being a little uninspired overall by the Kings offseason.
Can't they can still extend Keon Ellis though?
Maybe, so maybe they can. I was maybe unfairly framing it as just restricted versus unrestricted.
Right. That feels safer because he can just bet on himself. You've given him the option of of relinquishing team control. So I get where you're coming from, but it does feel. I do feel like what this means is that they were planning on being a little bit more aggressive and making up. So Dennis Schroeder, but it's like, okay, what else is happening here? They've been linked to. This makes no sense to me, as a Jonathan Kuminga team. Can you rationalize that to me at all?
Oh, absolutely. He plays for the Warriors. The Kings are still very into those ties. I mean, that's just how it's.
Well, is Mike Brown coming back, or is it like they give him a good reference for the Knicks job?
Yeah, no, I don't know what the Kings are doing. Again, I don't have an issue with Schroeder at this number. It's a position of need for them, but it's just not gonna inspire anything great. Do you have anything else on the Kings? I'm not sure I really do.
What do you view as their actual biggest need? If Dennis Schroeder's going
two-way players, they don't have a whole lot of those.
Did the Lakers offer Jake LaRavia just enough that the Kings couldn't re-sign Jake LaRavia because of the team option?
Well, they declined the team option, so they were limited to
5.2 million. So yeah, the Lakers gave him just a. Honestly, I fave that. That's the type of shenanigans that I'm here for. I like it.
Yeah, very petty. Enjoy it.
We have not heard. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say some LaRavia things.
Well, say more LaRavia things. Talk LaRavia to me.
I think LaRavia, I don't know that it's a shame that it wasn't the Kings' problem, right? Because it was the Grizzlies initially that declined that fourth-year option, right? And that just kind of followed him to the Kings. Do I have that right? So, it's too bad that he kind of looked pretty good, and you could really see him being a rotation guy there. But sorry, that
actually does suck.
Yeah, there's a ceiling on what they could offer him. I'm sure they would have been happy to pay more if they could.
I haven't asked you about this yet, and it hasn't. I assumed he was going to maybe get one, but perhaps not. The Keegan Murray extension, he's extension eligible. What do you see his value coming in at? I think a lot of the comparison points have been Jaden McDaniels, Trey Murphy, which probably feels fair. I think he probably gets. So I'll throw an over under here, $25.5 million per year on average in an extension. Would you take the over or the under on that? And I'll note that Jaden and Trey Murphy both got less, I believe.
Yeah, but and the Murphy deal we thought was pretty fantastic, and the Jaden McDaniels deal was long enough ago that maybe some of the numbers are different. I think I would go over, but I would say it is concerning that just because of the construction of the team, you've never really had Murray in a position where he could prove that he was willing to be a higher volume offensive guy. Because I suspect that's not quite in him, but he's just the way the Kings have put teams together. You've never really known for sure if maybe there's more there on offense than it's just a situational thing, and that's why he hasn't been, I don't know, getting up more shots, I guess, just to really simplify it. But I think that's a fair, 25-ish is more than fair for a guy who improved a ton defensively, has, he set the rookie record for threes. He's kind of had like some ups and downs and back and forths with his offense and defense, but that's right in the fair range. I go a little over, I think. What about you? You set the number. What do you think?
I think I would go over, too. I know there's been a lot of concerns about his offense, but I just think that the ground around him has shifted so much over the past couple of years.
It's really hard to judge anybody, especially he is kind of he's a high-end role guy. It's hard to judge those types of players in, like, funky offense-only, teams.
So, yeah, I'd go over as well. But I think the Kings, like, they need some type of consolidation trade. Or, like, they need a second best player or a third best, because like Levine's really good, but man, I don't know. This is such a weird situation for the Kings, because like Dennis Schroeder is your point guard. Like there's Malik Monk, Devin Carter, Levine, DeRozan can all do stuff. That's too many guards. That's just too many. Like who do you trust among those guys to play the wing? Probably Devin Carter the most, just because of what he does defensively.
Yeah, I mean, just the offense, the over-indexing on offense is just been a problem there for a while.
Yeah. BJ, imagine being a point guard after drafting 4 in the first round in the last 8 years. Damn. Imagine Kuminga with Levine, DeRozan, and Sabonis from Mike Glasgow. One of those guys would have no, they can't, because the base year compensation. How the hell does that even work? Man, if the Warriors end up with DeMar DeRozan is the only one who might fit into like a prospective trade with the Warriors, would that get you Giddey, or would you just prefer Josh Giddey?
I would pass on both. I would just rather let Kuminga walk. I don't want DeMar DeRozan on the Warriors. Are you kidding me? No way.
Next team up, I think we're getting close to like the lightning round here. Okay.
Oh.
I've got words to say, and I should tweet this out and promote it so that anyone who's actually mad at me can come in and defend their case. But if you're a Pelicans fan and you want to justify your case in the comments after the fact, I will read them. And if you're not a tool or rude, I will respond to them. This is not, look, Kevon Looney, 2 years and $16 million. Fine.
Tread carefully. Tread carefully. You're talking about a legend.
Yeah, when's the statue going to be outside Chase Center, or will it be at Oracle?
ASAP.
Here's my thing. This is another, all right, so we're not going to have any floor spacing in the front court alongside a team that has Zion Williamson and Derek Queen, and we're determined to have as many like undersized centers, I guess, as possible at this point. Size doesn't matter. I get that. This is just an extension of here's the tweet that got me in trouble. I thought it was clear that it was a joke, but someone told me when I didn't respond to it, it was like they told me to go guzzle gas or something like that. I said Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver are running the Pelicans like they're NBA league office plants, trying to ruin the franchise so they get extricated to another market. This is one of the all-time dumb off seasons I've ever seen. I don't care what Derek Queen turns into. And they did decline team options, by the way, on Elfrid Payton. That's what I'm mad about. How do you decline Elfrid Payton's team option? They also declined the Brandon Boston team option. Grant, have you tried to stop? And first of all, I feel bad for Kevon Looney for maybe being into, like, the Bulls and the Kings exist, and I'm, like, not entirely unsure that this isn't the worst-run organization at the moment. Like, I don't understand what the Pelicans' vision is. Like, you can't – we just went through the teams in the Western Conference. Like, if you were prepared to – Pelicans fans can talk themselves into they're going to be a top 6 team next year. If Zion Williamson plays in 82 games, there is still a pretty good chance that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Like, that is on the table. DeJounte Murray's recovering from Achilles injury when he's going to come back. I've seen people talking about how, like, Jordan Poole being there to sort of, like, mentor. I think Brandon Boston Jr. was one of them, and, like, now he's just off the team as of now. I've actually sat there. I've read comments. Most of them have been negative towards what you and I said when we did the Pelicans offseason look ahead. They're just insults. There's never an actual case made other than you don't know ball, or look at how many points Jordan Poole just averaged, or we have Zion, or Joe Dumars is determined to make us better. Yeah, I want Jordan Poole mentoring Jeremiah Fears. I want them to have the same exact shot selection. I don't.
Robert says, if Zion plays in 82 games, I'll eat Joe Dumars. That's just unhinged enough, and I knew that would get you. Look, I'm gonna jump in. I will not
I
say.
can't talk. So that's fine.
I will. Good. I'll take over. It's a team effort. I will not say a bad word about Kevon Looney. I'm ecstatic that he got 2 years and $16 million. He is a legend. He is a champion 3 times over. He is a good locker room influence. I don't think he would have had more than minimum offers from any other team in the league. Maybe you never know. That this signing stacked on top of the draft night trade that I think I'm comfortable saying was as universally panned as any trade I can remember in the last, you have to go back. The social media environment was a little different at this point, but like the Kings attaching a first to dump a bunch of salary so they could get Rajon Rondo and somebody else, like that's what you're comparing this to. And I think the downside of this draft night trade, which exposes the possibility of losing a high lottery pick, who knows how high it might be, removing the incentive to tank for a team that fell apart because of injuries. And like maybe normally you would say, well, that's just luck. This team has Zion Williamson and is built around him. So you don't get to say it's luck. It's the pattern now. The downside of giving up that pick is difficult to overstate. So maybe if that hadn't happened, I would be just more amenable to like, yeah, you know what? You're paying a premium for a guy with championship experience to come into a locker room that maybe needs some adults. Got it. Okay, slightly maybe defensible. We don't know if the second year is non-guaranteed or something like that. Even if it were, I still think you could have gotten Looney for less. The sum of it all is like, if you are a Pelicans fan and can defend all of this, I would love to hear like the rational justification. I'm just saying what you're saying because like Joe Dumars is not someone that has been regarded as a good NBA team builder. Like since he had something to do with the Pistons 20 plus years ago, and really ever since then has kind of been cited as a guy that like doesn't know how to do this job so good. And now you're seeing this with the Pelicans. It just feels like outdated thinking, like sort of the failure to value draft assets, the failure to see the risks or like maybe not see them. Like I'm sure if you trade a first rounder with the upside of the one the Pelicans did, that 26 selection to Atlanta, you're aware of what could happen. It's just like you're miscalculating the likelihood of it. It's highly likely that pick is valuable. And so I'm just backing you up. I don't read comments and no one has come at me from Pelicansdom. And if they do, I probably won't see it.
They have. You just haven't read the comments on YouTube.
I don't know and I don't care. They were on us for knocking them for what was their like lucky 3-point defense 2 years ago or something. How's that working out?
Meanwhile, I've smashed the Pelicans over the past like half decade and they've just disappointed me every single year. So you know what?
No, the Pelicans are operating like a dumb team. If they're not a dumb team, they're doing a good impression of one. Maybe that's the best way to say it. And you know what?
The way that the search for Joe Dumars unfolded, like this isn't even about Joe Dumars himself, like that proved it then. Was just that was an unserious search. Willie Green and Zion were seemingly attached to whoever needed to be hired. That's a terrible process. And you could say that I'm not saying David Griffin did a fantastic job here either. I don't think he did. But like, man, if I'm a Pelicans fan, I'm not rooting. By the way, my joke. If people thought I was serious, I don't want to see any market lose their team. I want New Orleans to stay in I want the Pelicans to stay in New Orleans. The fans deserve it. But like they also deserve a team that's run properly, and that's just we're seeing here. And I don't even know what would be the scenario to wrap up here where you look back and say, like, how would we be wrong about criticizing this trade? The trade and it's not about Kevon Looney.
Derek Queen wins Rookie of the Year.
Does that make us wrong, though? Like, you couldn't have figured out another way to get...
No, I mean, the result would make it seem like we were wrong. Yeah, that would make us wrong, because we're like, it's not worth it to give up this pick. If Derek Queen wins Rookie of the Year, and I guess also what would have to happen is the Pelicans are good enough, and the Bucks, which they don't have any control over, are good enough to make that pick not worth very much. But even then, like, the risk calculus as it exists today is just, like, screaming, don't do this deal.
I don't. Derek Queen could win Rookie of the Year. That's great if he does it as the Pelicans, the 14 seed in the West.
Right.
Cool. Final question. How many teams are you prepared to guarantee in the West that the Pelicans will be better than next season? Utah is one, right?
Well, no, I mean, yeah, that's the only one. I don't even know if. Yeah, I guess I would. You'd have to say the Jazz will be worse. After that, there's nobody I would say is
The
guaranteed
Lakers?
to be worse. Stop it.
The pick, a future mom, the pick they gave up is going to be 14th. Okay, congrats to the Pelicans on giving up a lottery pick that you didn't have to give up. Like, if you believe Derek Queen's going to be a superstar, that would end up being worth it in the end. But you can't tell me. And some of the justifications I use were, the Pels apparently called teams like 9 through 12 and offered them whatever it was, like the same deal, and couldn't. Okay, so you couldn't get, so you settled for a later one. Like I find it very hard to believe that you couldn't have done something else other than giving up an unprotected draft pick to move up 10 spots. That is malpractice. You don't get to say otherwise.
The Pelicans won 21 games. Like that pick 14. Yeah, it could be 14. It could be 1. Like
is there an analog? Like we didn't know about this to begin with, but like when's the last time a team won under 25 games and then proceeded to trade an unprotected first round pick like for the following season?
That's a research.
That's got to be like some Isaiah Thomas Knicks level shit. I'm sure that happened at some point, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, look, if we're wrong, we'll end up being wrong. But we're not piggybacking off what everybody else said either. I think everyone else is saying similar things because it's that obviously egregious. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm at. Thoughts on Stipe comment? The Bulls, they haven't done it. The Josh Giddey deal has not been announced yet. Grant, do you want to take us through what they have done though?
Trey Jones, 3 years, $24 million. Also, we mentioned Lonzo Ball out for Isaac Okoro coming in. Roughly equal money, as we said earlier. Lonzo had a team option on the second year of his $20 million deal. Okoro's got 2 at 22 left. The Giddey deal not being done, little surprising, but then it does just seem like extensions are lagging behind signings at this point. What do you think of Trey Jones at 3 for 24? I think that's a perfectly reasonable deal for a team that, he's not going to start. He doesn't have to. They've got a fair amount of guard depth, especially assuming Giddey is back, and you still got Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu there. Like, I think that's reasonable money for Trey Jones. Not a lot going on here, though, until the Giddey deal comes. That'll really be the one that I think if you're forming your Bulls offseason grade, whatever Giddey gets is going to be the bulk of that.
I think between the Giddey deal and how do they handle their expiring contracts with Ayo and Vooch and Kobe, like if they start moving those guys, it would signal, all right, they're playing a longer game here. But if the Giddey deal is like massive, so I think Trey Jones, that number is fine. He was really good for them last year. He was hitting shots. Like he did great. And with Lonzo not there anymore, having him, and it's certainly if you think, okay, maybe Ayo gets traded, he's been linked to a ton of trade rumors. The Giddey deal. Are you going to go, I'm going to say $22.5 million a year. Are you going over or under?
And in terms of what I think it will be or what I would do myself?
What you think it will be. I know what you would do yourself. You didn't happen to listen to the podcast I did with Mort on this, did you?
I'm sure Mort's about as low on the Bulls as anybody.
He wasn't willing to, I don't want to misquote him, but he wasn't willing to even give Josh Giddey the non-taxpayer mid-level exceptions.
Like no qualifying offer, just walk. I would in terms of preserving the asset, I would go a little higher than that. I think he's getting more than that. The number from months ago was 30 a year. I please Bulls, don't do that. I don't think you have to, and I don't think he's worth that. But if it's 22, I think he's going to get more than that. I'd be shocked if they could get him at 22 a year starting salary. I mean, even I might say that's actually okay.
I don't want to make you go down a vortex, but Mort asked me this: what is the scenario? How do you properly build a team around Josh Giddey, or is the problem sort of in the question that you shouldn't be asking yourself, how do we build the right team around Josh Giddey?
Okay. Yeah, I don't, and I think there's certain player types. I use Sabonis as an example of this.
God damn it,
that they're so productive that it seems like you just got to pay them like they're stars, but the problems they present in team building are such that if you're paying them like a star, you really can't build that good of a sustainable winner. And I think Giddey falls into that category just at a different position where he has to have the ball. I know the 3-point percentage has gone up. I just think the maximal value of Giddey is he has to have the ball, and I think that limits how good your offense can be. And then defensively, he sort of doesn't have a position, and he's a size that you normally have a good defensive player at. And so you're doing all these acrobatics to sort of figure out how to cobble together a defense too. So the problem is in asking the question. I think you don't build around Josh Giddey. If you get Giddey as an additive piece, that's fine, and you pay him like that, great. But he isn't someone that you pay like a star and then make decisions around him as he is now. Maybe he'll get so much better offensively that the conversation changes. I'm just saying that right now today, I don't think it's plausible to build a winner around him.
I don't even know like how he squares away as a complementary piece either, because what would be the type of star that you would, I guess if your best player is a big man who doesn't want the ball, like Anthony Davis, or is that not like,
I mean, I don't know that he's like a starter. I think like he could be a really interesting second unit leader where you can get away with like having to just have imperfect lineups. But yeah, the lineup problems and the roster construction problems are so significant with him that I'm just not, I don't know. Maybe I haven't given it enough thought. Like what do you need around him to make it work? Because like, I sort of cut the conversation off and say, like, why would you even try to do that? It doesn't make any sense.
This is a good question. Who should get more, Josh Giddey or Jonathan Kuminga? Both RFAs.
Yeah, they're probably going to be really close, I would think. I still think, caveat, I'm never rational about Kuminga, and I change my opinion every 30 seconds. I think Kuminga has the higher upside. I think Giddey has been more like conventionally box scorey productive than Kuminga may ever be. But yeah, I don't know. I think it shakes out probably pretty similar, like in the low 20s at the moment. But you have to acknowledge that just athletically and positionally, Kuminga, like the realized version of Kuminga does fit on good teams. It's just that he's never shown that he can, be that guy yet.
Robert, I'm laughing at your comment, but I can't in good conscience post it on screen. Future modern, what if the Giddey trade was Chicago's Paul George for Shea? I will eat Joe Dumars.
What if indeed? I guess we'll have to see if he leads the Bulls to a title in like 4 years, then we'll know.
We do regrades every offseason. We were wrong and we're sorry at the end of every season. So we'd be issuing some apologies would be my guess. That's what would happen.
Yeah.
Did you? I haven't talked to you about this. What did you think of what they did with Lonzo for Okoro? How did you feel about that?
I mean, we talked about the Cavs side of it, and I was very pro getting Lonzo and moving Okoro out. From the Bulls side of it is kind of, I don't know, the stakes are so much lower that I don't have nearly as strong of feelings about it. I guess you could say that Okoro for this team might actually provide more value because he maybe will be healthier and will give you, some. I mean, he's probably not. I guess in some ways he's a better defender. I don't know. I don't have real strong feelings about it. I guess just from a durability standpoint, maybe Okoro you could argue has more value than Lonzo does for Chicago. But like, I don't know. I'm not seeing like a huge needle mover there. What are your thoughts? I can't. It's hard to imagine having strong thoughts on this one from the Bulls side.
I understand it from like kind of the defensive perspective, and he did. There was once upon a time where he had some more on-ball reps in Cleveland, and like he showed some feel as a secondary playmate, like kind of the Josh Green type of playmaking, where if he's on the move, can do some things.
Speaking my language.
Yeah. So it's not on the level of Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey, but it feels like, I don't know, you got the worst player on a more expensive contract, so you like Isaac Okoro really needs to pop, and you also you winnowed down your collection of two-way players on a roster that doesn't have many of those to begin with. And I don't know I honestly don't know what the thought. Like, I would have wanted as much bankable floor spacing around Josh Giddey if you're going to pay him, and certainly Modest Buzelis and Noah Sengwe. So I found it curious. I don't think it's malpractice or anything, but they must see something in Isaac Okoro that I don't, or maybe they are gearing up for, if we think we're going to trade Io, we need someone who we think can play like 30 minutes of just really like gritty point of attack defense in the backcourt, and that's where they're coming at. And like we know Lonzo can't play 30 minutes a game anymore.
Right.
Our next team, we're entering the lightning round before the super lightning round. The OKC Thunder, Grant, they re-signed Jalen Williams, big Jalen Williams, for 3 years, $23.9 million. They re-signed AJ Mitchell for 3 years and $9 million, not $29 million, as I put up on screen. They had to decline. The Thunder declined team options on both of those dudes to make this happen. They also traded Dylan Jones and a second-round pick to the Wizards, who we had an extensive video on the other day. We won't be talking about them much tonight, but Wizards, we talk about just being opportunistic, taking flyers. They continue to do that. Any thoughts here on OKC? They were in a bit of a roster spot shuffle, which is why they, to make room for inbound first rounder, was it Thomas Sorber, you kind of had to get rid of Dylan Jones. But this is just like, these deals just might turn into a friggin' steal for OKC.
Yeah. I mean, the Mitchell one is so cheap that it makes sense. I mean, he was, before he got hurt, he was actually like, there was some real like weird backup playmaker possibilities there. Maybe he reprises that, and if he can kind of do anything at that salary rate, like that's a huge win. And Williams, like, again, you know, I think a lot of what, if there's going to be a domino that falls in OKC as extensions come in, it seems like it might be Hartenstein, and they'll be able to get out of the last year of that deal. So obviously a lot of the Sorber pick was kind of viewed through that lens. And then also maybe Jalen Williams, he was like much younger than I thought. I think he's 23. I don't know why. I just assumed he was older than that. But maybe he's someone that continues to improve as a shooter, just keeps taking charges, and is a legit first big off the bench for a version of the Thunder a couple of years from now at that pay grade. Like that's a huge value. So yeah, I mean, surprise, surprise, the Thunder just kind of continue to make smart moves on the margins.
I saw people trolling, like, why is it not a big deal when the Thunder give up, like, a second-round pick to wipe off a contract, and then why is it a big deal that what was the trade that I saw the reaction to? It was just like, well, I mean, it was Dylan Jones versus, like, someone who might have actually had, I can't remember it. But, yeah, this seems mostly shrewd, like, okay, the Thunder have picks to spare, so getting off a first-round pick 1 year later to create, like, roster spot, it's a little weird, but whatever. But I would echo what you said, and just if they have to make like you mentioned Hartenstein, maybe with AJ Mitchell specifically, like if you ever have to make a tough decision on Case and Wallace or Alex Caruso, just depending on what their price points land at, he's just insurance for that. And by the way, he was, before his injury, he was in the rotation. I know the Thunder were banged up at that point, but he was a rookie.
Yeah.
Not an undrafted rookie. Or was he a second round pick? No, he was undrafted, right?
I think so.
Regardless, he's in the rotation of what ended up being the NBA champion. That is absurd, and I would expect, I'm wondering if the Thunder will look at maybe getting shooters, like adding in another, but the bar is so high to crack the rotation, it's just sort of like, can you actually do that? I think the last piece of business that they'll probably do is both J-Dub and Chet Holmgren are getting their max, right?
Yeah. 34th pick in his draft. So
how did I not remember that? Undrafted.
When you said undrafted, I was like, that feels exactly right. I'm going to say yes.
It was funny because I scouted him for something that I did last year, so I should have known that it was number 34, but whatever. We move on. So we're going to have to spend roughly like 120 minutes or so on this team. Do you want to take us through what the Golden State Warriors have done?
Let's see. Nothing to see here. Picked up Keith Santos' team option, $2.2 million there. Kevon Looney gone. Salute. You champion. Jonathan Kuminga, question mark. And then the most important of all things, Quinten Post got his team option picked up, $2 million. He'd be a bargain at 100 times the price. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like...
Is he starting next season?
Well, maybe. Yeah, I bet he does. I'll bet they go into the season. They'll say it's a competition. Like Trace Jackson Davis will have a shot at it. Al Horford will have a shot at it when they sign him. And then Post will also have a shot at it. I think if you're really going to have Draymond and Jimmy Butler on the floor together, like, you better start Post.
And maybe
Kuminga just to get spacing. Even if it's Podziemski half the time, who goes through stretches where he can't make a shot. You're going to need more shooting, more spacing. I think Post is going to be the guy. You're going to have to deal with all the shortcomings. I do think I made the point last season that I do think there's a good possibility that he's someone that improves his defense to the point where it's at least like a net neutral. I don't know that he's ever going to be a good defender, but I do have some faith that he can be like an adequate guy out there to the point where you at least are able to keep the shooting on the floor. But yeah, I really Kuminga is who we got to talk about. I just like there's no offers. The Nets don't have any money anymore, and it's seeming more and more likely that he's going to come back and then probably get traded at the deadline when the base year compensation stuff is off the table. That's my forecast. Where are you on it?
I think I'm with you. I think maybe there's like an outside chance he just signs his QO and tries to go into unrestricted free agency, which would be quite the bet on a team that's not built to give him like the role that he wants. And so he would really have to embrace the role that they want him to play. And I haven't asked you this about him. So it's two questions. I want to know, what's the number? Like where the number gets queasy and you're almost hoping that he signs the qualifying offer or you're really squeezing him. Like what's the most you're willing to pay him as a Warriors in terms of preserving the asset?
Yeah, not from a like, oh, he's going to be on the team at this number. Like, so I think he would be very easily tradable if you hold on to him up and move him at the deadline when you can go more dollar for dollar and not this like 50% BYC stuff. I think he's pretty movable at 25 or under a year, or maybe just say starting at 25. If you get up into the 30s, then I don't know that he's going to play enough or show enough in whatever new role he might be in for that half a season to generate like real value. And then that's without even getting into the length of the deal. I don't even know what length of deal he would want, right? Like maybe he'd like to just get back on the market quickly.
2+1.
Yeah, something shorter like that. You know, we always default to like the four-year deal, or you know, some of these guys are getting 5 on the higher end. But yeah, I don't know if you go above 25, I don't know that he's necessarily a safe bet to be tradable for positive value.
BJ says in the chat, QO makes him easy to trade in December. It does, but his bird rights don't transfer, and he has veto power over any move. And so I don't know what a team would give up to get him at that point. My final question here would be, do you think for the role that the Warriors would, if you let the Warriors map out the role that they wanted him to play, do you think he's capable of, I don't want to say it's scaling down, but fitting into that? Like if he really, like from what you've seen, is this really a preference thing on his part, or you just think that he's not wired or not capable of being that guy?
I think that's a well phrased. I think physically he's capable, at least on defense and as a rebounder, of being exactly what they want him to be. I'm less certain that as an offensive player, he's outfitted with the skills to be a quick read and react, like, you know, point, whatever the Spurs thing was, 0.5 or whatever decision maker. I just think some guys can do that and some guys can't. I've never really seen him consistently be the type of offensive player that makes the correct, quick pass, dribble, shoot decision. And I don't know if that's in there. The bigger issue though, and you did delineate, like, is it a capability or a preference thing, is his preference is just not to be the guy the Warriors want him to be at all. He wants to be, he said it. Anthony Slater had the reporting on it. Like, he wants to be an all-star. He wants to be a first option scorer. He wants the ball in his hands. He wants to create shots, get to the foul line. I think that's awesome that that you got to believe in yourself, right? Like that's well, you should be that confident.
Can I quote Grant Hughes to Grant
Please.
Hughes?
I tried to remember what I said, but I couldn't.
If you don't believe in you, who will?
Right. If you don't believe in you, who will? Like, you should be irrational about how good you are. I think to a point. He's never shown the ability to drive good offense. And maybe that's not a fair thing to say because of the situation he's been in. But I just think the major issue, I've said it 100 times with the Warriors and Kuminga, is that he thinks he's a different player than they think he is. And I just don't know if that's ever going to square.
Glasgow asked, what are your actual thoughts on Al Horford for the Warriors?
I think he'd be a great fit. Obviously, like he would give you spacing. He'd give you defense. He'd be another smart addition, a good passer. He would thrive in the kind of offense they want to play. Yeah, Robert Kuminga is like DeAndre Ayton in that way. Yeah, just the processing speed's not there maybe, and also the sort of semi-inflated view of your skills and place on a team. Yeah, no, Horford would make a ton of sense for the Warriors. Don't you agree? Like, just then you're not really relying on Post and Trace Jackson Davis to be your starter.
I think the big problem there is that the Warriors aren't the Knicks. So,
right.
yeah.
Sorry, I forgot about that. Is this going to break up the podcast?
It might.
Just we fight over Al Horford and his age 57 season.
And then he signs with Milwaukee or something.
Then he's dead to both of us.
Then we have a common enemy. So it's make or break season. We're on to the Sixers. They signed Trendon Watford for 2 years, $5.3 million. That'll make Mort happy. And I actually think Trendon Watford is like sort of a grab and go, like undersized, like big point guard typey. I like him.
He's fun.
Kelly Oubre Jr. picked up his player option of $8.4 million. Eric Gordon declined his player option, which makes me think that they're just going to pick him back up on the minimum so it can offset with the way that the league reimburses you. And they declined the option on Lonnie Walker. I think none of this stuff is surprising. The Sixers don't have a ton of flexibility. The big thing that we would talk about quickly is the Quentin Grimes stuff. What do you think is a reasonable number? Where does this end up at? The Nets are the only team now that can really throw anything at him unless it's a sign and trade. Just what do you think happens, and where do you view him just when you look at Jared McCain and now you have VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey? Where does he rank on the scale of priorities for those guards? I know that VJ Edgecombe could be more of a wing, but just, we're asking questions.
No, I kind of view that as a bit of a logjam, especially if you think McCain can sustain and improve on what he did in a short rookie season. With the Nets kind of looking less like a threat, I'm lowballing because, one, you've got the positional glut. You just can't overinvest in Grimes. And two, Grimes has been this guy for 2 months. And I'm a little hesitant to go nuts on a $25 million a year thing based on that sample size. So I think if you're the Sixers, I'm starting negotiations at like 15 a year and just be like, well, it's going to beat the mid-level. So, this is still probably the best you're going to do. And if you want to just play on the qualifying offer, good luck to you. And then maybe you find out whether he's worth kind of bending over backwards to try to keep some other way. You probably are kind of just giving up on a long-term relationship if you do go the qualifying offer route. But I think the way that this offseason is shaken out so far with the lack of suitors and the Nets looking less threatening, I'm not starting in the 20s on him. Maybe he's worth that, but I'm not starting there.
This feels kind of like a situation where he'll get slightly more than the mid-level because it's like, okay, this was what the market could give you, so it's 14.1 to start. We'll give you 15, and the raises go up from there.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't it kind of feel like that's how this all ends? Which, by the way, is fair because I don't know how he fits in to the larger context of, like, it was cool that he had all that shot creation stuff, but will he play with the same mojo when the ball is not in his hands as often?
And from an opportunity standpoint, like he's just not going to have those kinds of touches unless the Sixers fall apart physically again. So it's not even a question so much of could he do it again. It's like, will he even be allowed to? Which probably not.
And then, so what does his value look like if it's 4 years and $64 million? I would say that's eminently tradable, but it's like, what is his actual value? And so and they don't know enough because they haven't seen it. It's not to say it can't be like great, but they just haven't seen it enough. Our next team, Grant, which I believe is our final real team. Okay. You want to take us through the Orlando Magic really quick?
Yeah, they signed Tyus Jones, 1 year, $7 million. That's a portion of the mid-level exception. Declined Mo Wagner's $11 million team option. I'm sure he'll be back on a different number just because one, he was super good offensively before he got hurt, and two, his last name. They declined a $2.2 million team option on Caleb Houston. Tyus Jones quickly. So I think when we were sketching out who the Magic need, we were always kind of like, oh, dynamic playmaker and shot creator. And Jones was always like an okay fit. But now that Desmond Bane is there, you can deal with a game manager, right? Which is what Jones is. I think I'm fine with it, especially at that number. Even if Jones isn't the real exciting, I don't know, scoring spacing threat that I don't know, that we have kept using Anthony Simons as that guy.
Right. I mean, he's not this might allow him to blend what he did in Phoenix, which he didn't, he was in the corner a lot versus they will give him on ball touches, but he's also not a great defender. So will Jamal Mosley ever play him is the question. I did not see him getting less guaranteed money per year than Trey Jones. I guess
Yeah.
Trey Jones was negotiating with the Bulls, but I like the fit here. It's a game manager for Orlando, and just like in the minutes, whether it's with Paolo and Franz or without, like this is just Orlando. We talked about maybe they could get a lot better on offense this year when they signed Quinten. Like now they're set up with Desmond Bane tied. Like you can get and I wonder how much Desmond Bane, Tyus Jones' former teammate, played a role in getting him to Orlando. So
Yeah.
I like this. I think it's fine for the Magic, and I said this to Mort. They have to be considered the third best team in the East right now, right? They might even be considered the second. I think Cleveland would be favored, and then maybe it's like New York, Orlando, kind of in that mix. Who would we be? We like Atlanta at this point for sure. I like Miami's not going to be in that. Maybe if the Sixers are healthy, but that's a big if.
Yeah, I think Cleveland's the only lock it in ahead of them at this point, and like pretty comfortably. But after that, yeah, they got as good a shot as anybody. I'd probably put the Knicks in that same area. Who? I mean, Orlando won
The Jordan
10
Clarkson
fewer
signing put you over the top on New York.
Well, Orlando won 10 fewer games than the Knicks last year, and they had their two best players out for like a huge chunk of the season. So the gap, even based on last year, isn't as wide as it might seem.
I actually lied, and we have this team, the Spurs. I found it fascinating. So Luke Kornet got 4 years and $41 million. The final year is a team option. So, like, all right. That was – how do you feel? You have Wemby. That you could play them together, I guess, at point. Like, Luke Kornet gives you, in theory, could give you some stretch. You have the Kornet contest. Like, do you think the Spurs are built to – I think Boston allowed him to do a lot of things defensively that would cover up for his weaknesses. Do you think the Spurs are built in a similar fashion?
I think he's an okay fit there. It's a little more than I thought Kornet would get, but given like the Spurs just had nobody at center, whether behind Wembanyama or like next to him, so he's a pretty significant upgrade there. It's a little more like, I mean, yeah, the team option on the final year is maybe if it's effectively 3 for 30. Like maybe that has a little less sticker shock, but even this 4 for 41, that's totally fine by me.
I think it's fine. I mean, they're in a position where it works. The number caught me off guard a little bit there.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll play him and Wemby together? Probably not, right? Because they just don't have like enough backup big man types on the roster in general.
Well, yeah, more so for that reason than like a fit issue. Because I think you can sort of play any actual center with Wembanyama if you want to. If he's going to shoot 10 threes a game this year, why not?
Now, my big question is, how will Brad Stevens reacquire Luke Kornet in the middle of the season?
Let's see. They'll Derek White back to San Antonio. That'll be the trade.
So I'm going to just read to you the other teams that we didn't go through what they did. It's going to be less than 30 seconds on each team, just to see like if there's any storylines to keep track of, basically. So the Boston Celtics, they signed Luka Garza, so they found their big man replacement. They picked up the team option on J.D. Davison. I think the storyline kind of here is, are they done with their cost cutting? And no justification needed. Does this make it more likely they bring Horford back now that they lost? I think everyone thought, Kornet's going to end up being the cheaper one, so he'll be back. And now it's like, well, Kornet got like more money than Brook Lopez.
Yeah, wow, that's the way to frame it. I don't understand why Horford would come back, other than if it's like a lifestyle, the kind of, he wants to be in Boston, because I think he's gonna get full mid-level offers, and I don't think Boston should be in the business of doing anything close to that.
I've sent everything on my desk flying. The Pacers picked up the team option on Tony Bradley. Is Miles Turner gone, Grant? Is that what's happening?
I'm just looking at your keyboard. I can't concentrate right now. Yeah, clearly Tony Bradley is going to be the center of the future for the next championship iteration of the Pacers. Not like he'll be back. Like I don't know why he hasn't signed yet, but I don't think there's any realistic scenario where Turner gets away. Do you?
No, I don't. And then if it is, it's going to be a sign and trade at this point too. I do wonder. Do you think that they're going to enter the season in the tax, or that they'll cut salary before?
I think they'll cut salary before, unfortunately. The Halliburton injury, I think, gives them cover to do that, even though they said they would pay it.
The Miami Heat, they did re-sign Davion Mitchell on a 2-year deal. I think it was $24 million. That's fine. Duncan Robinson is a free agent, so he declined his early termination option. Had he picked it up, he would have been guaranteed almost 10. This just feels like it'll end with him signing for multiple years, that like maybe 2 years and 20. So it's like he's locking in slightly more guaranteed money than he had for year one, and then you get money in year two, and maybe it's not guaranteed. I thought that was an interesting decision by him.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the obvious possibility he'll just be back. I was like, oh, there's a shooter on the market. Like maybe he fills the Beasley void and everybody throws money at him. I think that's a fair assumption now to be back in Miami with more guaranteed money. What's wrong with that?
So Phoenix, we know about they acquired Mark Williams. They guaranteed the salary of Nick Richards. They also drafted Malawach, so they got some centers there. They traded Micic as part of that deal for Mark Williams. Cody Martin was officially waived by Phoenix. Go pick him up. Knicks, Celtics, every single team in the NBA. He's a fit everywhere. And as you pointed out, they agreed to a 1-year, $2 million deal with Nigel Hayes Davis.
Got to get our EuroLeague champion and Turkish Cup MVP guys some shout-outs.
The Blazers, we probably could have talked about this more at length, but they waived DeAndre. They finalized a buyout with DeAndre Ayton. We know they traded for Drew Holiday. We talked about that at length, more than I, so that's why we didn't go through it. What did you make of that? He reduced his salary by $10 million, which made me think that, okay, he's getting like most of the non-taxpayer mid-level somewhere else.
I think my takeaway is that really big expiring salaries may not be what they used to be. Because what was he at, about 35 a year, and then coming off the books, you would think in years past there would have been a market for that guy. Maybe it was to take on longer term money that might not be so hot, but you would have, it just. As we're trying to figure out what this new CBA is going to inflate the value of and diminish the value of, it kind of feels like maybe expiring salaries are not quite so great.
Yeah, how'd they get Turkish Tatum from BJ talking about Phoenix? Good for them. So will he be Turkish positive Tatum or negative Tatum? How does that work?
TBD.
So, yeah, I would echo everything you kind of said there, and especially the Colin Sexton deals and what I look at, where it's like, all right, they had to give up. It's just bizarre, some weird stuff. The Toronto Raptors, Grant, you know what they've done? Absolutely nothing. They did get rid of Masai Ujiri, though. Your thoughts on that?
Well, he'll be running the Knicks pretty soon, so we'll talk about it then. No, I don't know. I mean, it seemed like that was souring, didn't it, in hindsight? Like, there was some question about – I mean, he was making a ton by all accounts, and, like, he's presided over this team that has kind of been like treading water for a little bit too long. So I get it. I'm not surprised. And he's a big personality too. Like he was kind of bombastic in some of his comments about the team's ambitions and then didn't deliver. So that's always going to maybe, rub ownership the wrong way. Yeah,
it just felt, I don't know, the press conference vibe based off the quotes I saw from it just made me feel like they don't really have a plan. Like this felt like more of a power Tory issue than it was anything else. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I don't fave it. Finally, the Washington Wizards, they waived Anthony Gill. They acquired Dylan Jones from the Thunder. We just did. So Eyeglassco says Masai drafted one more wing who can't shoot before he left, though. I like that. The optics made it. The timing was weird because the optics made it look like they were so unhappy with the draft and they fired him, which is clearly this is stuff that builds up.
Do you sneak the pick in to everyone's surprise? It's like, no takebacks. See ya.
We recorded something recently at length with the Wizards. I'd encourage you to go check it out on our YouTube channel or podcast feed. We like the direction that they're headed in. I think that they have enough expiring contracts, though, where it's like we haven't heard from them yet during free agency, but we will hear from them at some point.
Feels like a threat. Is that a threat?
Look, it's 1:15 a.m. my time. Are you ready to take us out of here, sir, after 2 hours and 17+ minutes of free agency talk?
Pretty good for us on a day one of free agency. I don't know what our average is, but this feels like it's under it. Thanks, everybody that checked in, for commenting, for watching. If you're listening to this on your podcast player of choice, rate, review, subscribe, do all the things. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Leave us some comments there. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. Join our Discord. A lot of Discord members in the chat. Nice to see everybody in a different parasocial setting, I guess. I don't know. We're friends here, too. Shouts Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.